Welcome back to 23.7 Fog Radio, where we've got all the coverage on the many disastrous happenings of Aurelia and those other two continents. We'll be diving into all the down and dirty with some hard-hitting interviews. Erewhon himself will be here later, but first, a roughly 2-hour podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a books club Oh man. Hey everybody, welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a book club style podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two book besties who read a lot of books. John and Kyle, they're forced proximity tropes by marriage who have agreed to read with them and love every second of it. I'm Kyle.
I'm Lauren.
I'm John.
And I'm Con. Thanks for joining our Throne of Glass book club. In this episode, we are starting part 2 of the last book in the Throne of Glass series, Kingdom of Ash, with chapters 68 to 87. There will be no spoilers for future chapters, so chill out. You're safe here, baby. Additionally, this is your mild content warning, as we will be discussing themes from this book that include seducing in-laws, sensual foot massages, and Spideys. Again, sorry, Lauren.
But before we dive into today's episode, we want to give a quick shout out to our incredible Patreon members. Want to join the club? Head over to Patreon. We have membership options for $5 or $10 a month that will give you access to all kinds of fun stuff like ad-free episodes, game nights, gifting and giveaways, and a growing community of other really lovely book nerds. Our Patreon is linked in the show notes or the description box below.
Lastly, let's kick off this episode with a little bit of love from one of our recent reviewers. Writing a review and sharing with a friend is the best and easiest way to support any podcast. It helps the show reach more people and personally makes our day. We love reading them, and I personally plan to get them all tattooed on my back, much like Aelin's life story.
Wow.
Here's a recent review on Apple Podcasts from our friend Abstat, titled Fun Stuff, 5 stars. She says, I love nerding out with fellow SJM fans. This pod is all fun, smiley face. Thank you so much. So much. Thank you.
Thanks.
So much thank you.
So much. Thank you.
So many thanks. Yes.
So many. And now it's time for our pronunciation guide. Over to you, Con.
You okay, John?
Yeah, just felt weird.
Calling your wife by her name?
Yeah. Over to you, babe.
Thanks, babe. This week, starting part 2 of Kingdom of Ash, the only name that I have for you is Tellin Venora, Bronwyn's ancestor who fought in the Witch Wars.
Witch Wars?
I'm
so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Which wars?
Which Wars?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Gather round now, children, and hear the tales of chapter 68 to 87, spun by our very own storyteller, Juan.
Wow. Yes. The legendary storyteller Juan. I've heard whispers. His retellings are so vivid they make the Princess Bride's grandfather seem like an amateur. Just don't stop the kissing parts. Right, Lauren?
Ugh, keep them coming.
Keep him coming, that's right. Well, and we pick up with Dorian, sneaking into Morath by transforming into a mouse. When it comes to infiltration, subtlety is the name of the game. He quickly discovers a disturbing partnership. Maeve and Erewhon are meeting in secret. Maeve, ever the opportunist, reveals her true identity as the Vol Queen and confesses that Aelin's clever letters incited rebellion back in Dorinel, effectively deposing her. She suggests an alliance with Erewhon and even presents a dark solution for his struggles with housing 6 Volg princesses, some Karenqui spiders. Meanwhile, Aelin, Lysandra, and their forces arrive at Orinth, preparing for the imminent siege. And back in Morath, Maeve catches Dorian sneaking about, offers him a tempting deal. Give her the word keys, and she'll take out Erewhon and his brothers for good. She also needles him about Aelin being glad that he's handling the keys, saying that she subconsciously hoped Dorian would be able to make the sacrifice for the lock. Dorian plays along, countering with his own audacious plan. If Maeve helps him, he'll let her rule Aderlin and even propose a fake marriage alliance. Yeah, boo earns. Dorian's ingenuity shines when he shapeshifts into Vernon to interrogate Erewhon, though he uncovers nothing of value. As Maeve brings the spiders to Morath, Dorian uncovers a room containing a black stone sarcophagus, wordstone collars, and chilling evidence of Erewhon's origin. That's right, it's the tomb where Elena and Gavin trapped him. Overwhelmed by the collar's power, he's saved by Maeve, who insists she's not as monstrous as Erewhon. Realizing the final word key is likely in Erewhon's tower, Dorian enlists Maeve to distract Erewhon. She tries seduction, classic villain tactic, but Erewhon isn't biting. The next day, with Dorian disguised as a mouse, Maeve pretends to demonstrate her power by summoning an illusion of Erewhon's brothers. This grants Dorian access to the tower, where he finds the key embedded in the arm of a woman in Erewhon's bed. After extracting it, he's unable to end her suffering, but Maeve, ever ruthless, does the deed. And, unlike Kale, Dorian actually seems to have been self-reflecting on his past trauma experiences and unfortunate circumstances in order to forge a path forward, or at least not be caught, dare I say, unawares.
Is that mouthwash?
And he's been playing the long game. He outmaneuvers Maeve at her own game as she quote-unquote takes over his mind, which he saw coming, having been studying her magic this whole time, and he temporarily controls her mind and then also severs her ability to make portals. Not only that, but he sabotages Morath itself, setting it up for collapse. And with all 3 keys in hand, Dorian emerges as the MVP of magical badassery. Yeah, long live the king!
Long live King Dorian!
Marry me! Marry me!
Meanwhile, in Orinth, Aelin learns Irene can potentially heal her foot, though it'll be a slow and painful process. The revelation of Erewhon's 100,000-strong army sends Aelin into action. Vernon, ever the schemer, is left chained and starving as karmic justice for his cruelty to Aelin. As the siege begins, Aelin and his forces employ explosive tactics to take out Morath's witch towers, but their victory is tempered by the overwhelming numbers. And just when things seem bleak, Manon and the 13 arrive with an army of Crocken witches over 5,000 strong. Ow, ow. In the ensuing battle, Aelin is critically injured, but saved by Ren. Lysandra goes full sea dragon mode, wreaking havoc on enemy lines. Amidst the chaos, Dorian summons Gavin to confirm his next move. He's taking the word keys to Aelin, ready to determine the fate of the world.
My little asterisk note does not have to be said. But you said, unlike Kale, he didn't self-reflect. I was like, there's a whole book about him self-reflecting. What do you mean he didn't self-reflect?
Good point.
Kyle getting all passionate about the characters.
He's my boy. That's my boy. My boy.
My boy.
That's my boy. All right. Part 2, Gods and Gates, Kingdom of Ash, Chapter 68. Line 1. This isn't line 1. I just want to say that
You just read the book to us.
new thing I'm trying out. I just wanted to say that I'm so very here for any Dorian-centric chapter, and frankly, am sick of them being few and far between.
Me too.
Also, I called it with this Volgan law meeting. I was like, maybe gonna show up at Morath, and I was right. That'll be my only I called it for this session.
I think
No, it's not.
I called it for this session for you. Like, Kyle called
really?
this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dorian and Maeve's mind battle. And
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't exactly what I was thinking, but I guess technically, yeah, they did sort of do that. But I thought they were going to take each other to different realms, like she was showing Aelin memories, not just like a tit for tat sort of thing, where it's like, I gotcha, no, I got you.
That would have been cooler, though, I feel like.
I feel like she would need a whole nother book for that. To just,
Yeah,
like, go
probably.
into, I don't know.
Why
Anyways.
not? What could she possibly be busy doing these days? Except for writing more information about her first series.
Completed series. Oh, okay. My first note was just that it is wild to me that Dorian buried the keys somewhere outside of Morath and then just went in living on a prayer. Like, I mean, what else was he going to do? But also, what?
Yeah, this was my first note too, and it was specifically the line that said, and he could only pray it was far enough away to avoid Erewhon's detection. And my note here was, does Erewhon have some special, like, word key detector or, like, enhancer that he can feel it further away than Dorian could? Like, Dorian, Aelin, like, they're all able to be, like, they can sense it or whatever, but couldn't Dorian, like, put it there and then walk so far away and be like, yeah, I don't feel it anymore. It's safe. But instead he's like, yeah, I'll stick it in this little part right here and hope for the best. I was like, okay, dude.
Well, Erewhon is Volg, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just trying to hide it extra far away just in case. I don't know.
He probably has an app for it. He's got, like, the tile on each one.
He goes out there with a metal detector
Yeah.
in his free time.
They got air tags.
Yeah. He's like, your work key was last located by someone who walked by this area.
I feel like if that was the case, this book series wouldn't have been needed to happen. Like, he would have just
That's
had
true.
them at the beginning.
There's a lot of
Real
reasons.
short.
You got a point. I just had a little note here. I thought it was funny. Dorian is a mouse, and it says, Dorian allowed himself one long breath before he squeezed beneath the shut door. And I just pictured like a big little mouse breath. It's like a big breath, but like it. And then he just like scuttles under.
A huge breath for him, but someone watching just sees like a goes inside.
Well, and the best part I feel like about this POV was that he sees Erewhon and it says he could remain in this form and strike. I was like, in his mouse form? What was he going to do?
It's a
Totally
good point.
unexpected.
Well, I thought he was talking about like his hands, just his invisible hands. Could he still have those as a mouse and just his neck? No, I didn't think that he was gonna like, I gotta bite your ankle.
I'm gonna scratch you.
That's all I could picture. I was like, what a way to end Erewhon. Mouse Dorian.
Write some fanfic about that.
It's like the one thing Erewhon's actually afraid of. He sees a mouse and like jumps up on the table. Oh God!
Give him the plague.
Well, unlike Kyle, I was not expecting Maeve to just show up and just be like, hey, it's been me the whole time. I've been hiding you from literally a millennia, and one thing goes bad for me, and so now I'm just showing up. You've gone through so much specifically to hide from this person and set up all of those extra defenses and all the things that you just, I don't know, walk on in. I was shocked.
Yeah. I will say I expected her to be there eventually. Did not expect it to be like a, will you want to help me situation. I thought it was going to be like, I'm in charge now sort of thing. Not like her coming knocking for help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like she wanted him.
Yeah, she did.
I mean, it felt like she was definitely...
Did she?
She tried to just seduce him, so.
Yeah, but she didn't really want to.
just seduced.
Sorry, it makes me nervous talking about those things. Tiki.
Oh my gosh, she was definitely trying to like play Erewhon, I feel like, but yeah, it did feel odd that she was just like me.
Yeah, and like the first thing she says, like, you don't recognize me, like after all this time. She didn't try to play as Maeve, the Fae Queen, coming to help, or any of that stuff. Instead, she just revealed that she is the Vogue Queen or whatever. Because like, is Maeve even her real name? I would assume not, right? Because Erewhon...
That's what he called her.
The Vogue are also always like, well, you can't pronounce it in your tongue. They're like the Vogue
My
names,
real body
so-
will freak you out.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, because he goes by Erewhon, but that's not his real name either, right?
Yeah. I hope not.
Technically,
Poor
not his
guy.
real name.
Sorry to all those of you named Erewhon out there.
I did see a girl at church the other day, and her name was Aelin, a little girl.
I thought you were saying Erewhon. I
So
was like, wow.
there are some people out there naming their kids after these characters, but I would highly doubt any of them are named Erewhon. So if you're listening and you did actually name your child Erewhon, please tell us. Please let us know.
Tell us if it was before or after this book, too.
Yeah, you know, the really common name Erewhon that everyone was naming their kids right before the series came out.
Yeah.
What if they just want to call him Era after the Eras tour?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
That's true.
Era 1, Era 2, Era 3, all the eras.
Era Juan. Anyway,
Moving on. John's like, I've been over this for a while, guys.
Yep.
chapter 69. Hey,
60 what?
In Adian's 69. In Adian's POV here, he's thinking about how it would be so cool if like the long forgotten giants from the Staghorns and the ancient wolf tribes would show up and save the day, but like, bummer, they don't all know Aelin and owe her a life debt. As much as I would love to know more about both of those things, I do appreciate that there's more to this world and not literally every living creature in the history of the planet is coming out of the woodwork to repay life debts to one person. I love that. I love the Avengers Endgame like mentality here. But I do appreciate the little snippets of like, there's more stuff in this world, and like not every single creature knows Aelin personally and owes her life debt.
See, I took this completely opposite, and my note was, I can't wait for them to show up to the battle too. Like, that's going to be awesome. I can't wait. And like, even if they don't specifically come for Aelin, this is still someone threatening the literal entire world and their existence as
I agree.
well. So it would make sense, I think, for random creatures to come out of the woodworks. Like how even like the guys from the wild men from the Fang Mountains decided to like stick with the group, even though they had like technically completed what their like agreement was, specifically to like get revenge on this dude.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
it'd be,
I don't know. I feel like it would make sense for all the random creatures to
it'd
show
be
up.
weirder if they didn't. Like if the world was in peril and they're like, well, we
Yeah.
don't owe them any favors, so.
I mean, that's what happened 10 years ago when Otterlin was taking over, but sure.
No, that's true.
And that was weirder. And that happened.
But I mean, even if you think of just the sheer volume of like land that the army has just like destroyed, you
That's
figure
true.
that some of these creatures, like, where are they?
Yeah.
I mean, they gotta be, I mean, you know,
Was
don't see them like running
made of
away
the
or
bog
something, but
whatever?
anyway.
These are the long forgotten giants from the Staghorns and the
Oh.
ancient wolf tribes. That's what I'm
Yeah,
talking
but
about.
like,
It's like
how long?
legends.
Everyone was here 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. And the Mycenaeans were supposedly legends, and so were the Crockens. They thought there weren't any left, so I mean, it could happen.
So there's
I
probably
don't-
only like, 3 giants left and maybe like one small wolf tribe that are just hanging on the edge of the continent somewhere. Just
It's crazy for me to think, though, because, like, you said they're ancient tribes and people's long forgotten or whatever. But if it was truly, like, 1,000 years ago this first war happened, and maybe a little bit before then was when those tribes existed, that would be like me saying, like, I don't think Rome exists. That was 1,000 years ago. If we did not have the internet currently and I was like, I don't think it's real, that'd be the same thing. So, like...
If all the little folk, though, live in the little mountains in Dorano and nobody knows that they're there and they have this whole little underground, like, tunnel in and out and all this stuff, and they're literally next to these giant staghorn mountains, who's to say there's not a bunch of random creatures and things living in or around those
So it's
and they
more
just
like
haven't seen
a
them, so.
cryptid situation then. Like they're literally hiding from the world, and that's why the world has forgotten about them.
Yeah.
Whereas
Could be.
Rome is not hiding from the world, and that's why I know about them.
Oh. That makes sense.
That's why.
That's the only reason why.
So glad you cleared that up for us, Kyle.
I'm just trying to make it make sense to me personally. Thank you very much.
I had to call out this when Rolf is telling Darrow that he came to fulfill an old debt by fighting for Terrazin, and Darrow replies, well, we have the gods to thank for that. And Lysandra is like right on that. She says, you have Aelin to thank for that, simmering with rage. And I wrote, damn straight you do. I was telling this whole time, like when we first met him, like when he said, like, go find us allies. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you guys been doing for 10 years? Like, what are you guys doing? They're sending this person out that they think isn't the queen. And they're like, find us thousands and thousands of soldiers that we can fight this oncoming army. We're just going to sit back here.
Well, and the fact that they did say to Aelin, go find all these people, and yet he still won't accept that all these people came because she found them.
Right, yeah.
I was like, she just did what you asked, sir.
Yeah.
This
Calm
also
down.
it makes his like later comment about being like, I'm too old to fight means so much
hated
less to
that.
me, because I'm like, you had 10 years to raise an army and didn't do that. So like,
Yeah.
well, I think you're just lazy, dude.
But to continue on with what Lysandra was saying, she said, all of them came here because of Aelin, not you. So before you sneer at that, there is no Her Majesty's Armada. Allow me to tell you that there is, and you are not part of it. And I was like, yes, tell him off.
Yep.
Freaking amazing.
Yerp.
Darrow is the worst.
You know who's worse than Darrow, though.
I was just about to say, but is he worse than Adian? That's an
bold
argument.
claim.
That's an argument.
He's not. He's not worse than 80.
I
mean, at least Adian is like team assassin. He's fighting
stuff.
and doing stuff, but he's not.
I don't know, man. I still
Let's put
think
it on
Aiden's
our
worse.
Instagram stories. When this episode comes out, we're putting it on our Instagram stories.
Darrow
Who
versus
is worse? Darrow versus Adian. So everyone jump over to Instagram the day this episode comes out, whatever day that is. And
It's a bracket for the worst
and vote.
character in Throne of Glass.
yes, we picked the bracket. It's only these two people.
I would say like,
And go and vote.
at least from me, Aelin has redeeming qualities. I have not seen any from Darrow. Aelion's a leader, at least a good leader of an army who's in the mix with his people, putting his life on the line.
Yeah, he is.
And both of them are not on good terms with Lysandra, so that's a negative for both of them.
So true.
Right.
I don't like either of them right now. But in this same conversation, Darrow tries to tell Lysandra she's like dismissed and tries to tell her to leave. And Aelin chimes in for her and says, like hell she is. And I said, shut up, Aelin. Nobody asked you. She's standing up for herself. She doesn't need you to do that. That's all.
Men.
Ugh.
But yes, to continue that, Aelin does say she fought on the front lines at every battle and nearly died against her enemies, and I didn't see any of you bothering to do the same. And I was like, yes, all those little flabby old guys are just sitting there, and they just need to be quiet. I cannot. And this is the same where Kyle just brought it up a second ago, where Darrow says, to be too old to fight while younger men and women die is not as easy as you would think. And I'm like,
Must be
bro,
nice.
you could still fight. Yes, you are old. No, you will most likely not survive. However, you could still fight. You are still making a choice not to. Like, no one is standing there at the army going, no, sir, you're too old, go sit down.
Yeah.
Like, you are making that choice.
I mean, this is
True.
like the same dude that was sitting in a tent eating a steak or whatever, and some guy would come in and be like, 500 soldiers died, and you'd be like, sucks, and keep eating. Like, for so many chapters, he was like, oh, that sucks, few hundred, well, we'll get past it.
Even in this section, and
Yeah.
they're like up in the tower, and he goes, hot refreshments. And I was like, bro, seriously?
It was for Evangeline.
I don't care. Bro, people are dying. And you're just going to be like, bring me some soup. I'm like, okay. I don't care. I'm over him. No.
Hot cocoa at once.
Yes, exactly, John.
He sees the
Rings
army
the little
approaching.
bell.
Oh,
Ding, 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 ding.
not before I've had my coffee.
Someone bring me my refreshment.
Where are my marshmallows?
He literally handed it to Evangeline.
Bring me my cider and my
I'm
brown
sure he
pants.
took some too. You will not convince me that he wasn't doing that for himself. I get that Evangeline was there. But I have this in my notes later. But all of his interactions with Evangeline, to me, is giving Arobin. Like, I just can't. And it's creepy, and he's weird, and he's old, and she's young, and it just,
I did not read it that way at all.
Neither
Nope.
did I. How old is she again? She's like 8 is what I was picturing.
That's what I
thought
was
she's
going
like
to say.
11.
8 to 10 or something,
Yeah.
maybe.
No, I thought she was like, I thought she was at least 11.
But who knows?
Google, which is what Connor's doing.
Google is not very, she is 11.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm so smart. It's like I read the book.
Yeah, I forgot that she was in that training.
Technically, she wasn't because of the scars
That's
on her
true.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
She's
idiot.
been like,
Dang it. How about you read the freaking book, moron?
Actually,
Either way. Not quite Arobin in my book. I wasn't reading into it in that way at all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like he's like creeping on her. He just being old and like, I don't know. I'll just take care of her and stuff. And just, I don't know. He just gives me the creeps. I just don't like him.
because he's old.
Lauren hates old people. You heard it here first.
People who like refreshments.
Every old person. There's no human being on earth who doesn't like refreshments. So that's gotta be every single one.
Next poll, do you or do you not like refreshments?
Somebody's like, I effing hate
Follow up. Do you
refreshments,
hate
dude.
old people?
Anyone on Instagram today that does not listen to this podcast is going to be very confused by what's happening in our stories.
Bring someone a drink that's hot or cold and they spit it out and they're like, why isn't this lukewarm and gross? This is refreshing. I want it room temperature.
I gotta go to the bathroom. This is bad. Okay.
Where are we? Are we at chapter 70?
I don't know.
All right. 18 more chapters.
We got 70.
Oh my gosh.
Whew, let's go.
Maybe we should start
Chapter
moving.
70. I kind of already talked about this, but this is when Maeve comes in and she's just like, hi, it's been me the whole time. And just like, I don't know. I was just not expecting her to just...
I'm the problem, it's me.
Thank you. I just wasn't expecting her to just like, I don't know, give it all away, I guess. But then we find out here that... What did I say?
You said it,
Both
and then I
of you
wasn't going
Kyle
to say
said that.
anything, but Connor made a face.
I don't know what
Sorry.
I said.
You said you weren't expecting her to give it all away.
Okay.
Which, you know.
Her special bits.
Oh, man.
Oh, I have to go to the bathroom for real. I'm out of here.
Oh my god.
Her no square, Lauren.
Downstairs mix-up.
I already Oh, this is also, sorry, I thought I'd said this note. My bad. I had to go to the bathroom. This is also the time when she's having this conversation with Erewhon where she talks about how Aelin's little letters actually worked. And like there's like this whole little coup in Dornell and now she's no longer the queen and whatever. So that's exciting. I did not expect anything to happen with those. I just thought the way like Rowan and Aelin talked about them, like, you actually think that's gonna work kind of a thing. I was just like, oh, okay, well, she's just throwing stuff out there. But it's kind of nice that it did. That's helpful to them. Maybe that army will show up and fight for them, like good guys.
Perhaps.
Maybe they're the giants.
You never know. They might be giants.
I would, speaking of the giants, I would really love, on the opposite, I would love the little people to show up and just like have all of them out there like throwing acorns at people and whatever.
Like the
I just
Ewoks
think,
in Star Wars.
yes. It'd be awesome.
Or the Mario movie.
Yeah,
Mario
with
movie.
little snowballs.
Snowballs. Taste our fury.
Well, I had, during her discussion with Aaron, it said, a flick of her slender fingers, and a hole simply appeared in the heart of the chamber. And I just wrote, not only was I interested to find out that portals were so simple and easy, and not like a long ritual thing for her to do, but I also wonder, after seeing it and possibly learning about it, if Dorian could replicate it in any way. Because later on he sort of asks questions about it, but he doesn't like go into too much detail. But he's also seen less of other powers and done more with them. So
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if he will eventually do his own little portal magic of some kind.
Me too. Can't wait.
Well, because like they read the little books, the word books,
Yeah.
and
The
Rowan
word
was like, open, I know that word is open. And they were like, oh, like what Maeve does. And then Erewhon here's like, I forgot you mastered that one. So is it that it is like a word mark? Kyle and I were talking about it.
Oh.
Oh,
Kyle
yeah.
said something like, maybe she has it like tattooed on her or something.
Yeah, I
or
did say that.
Interesting.
like somehow that she just mastered the word marks because that's how she used it to like world walk or whatever.
You saying
know.
word books like that and Rowan saying open like that, I can only picture it now as like baby's first word book. Like
Open!
a picture on everything. Ball. That word means ball.
First 100 words.
Yeah.
WYRDS.
Oh man. We should make that book.
Yeah, that could actually be a really good book. Connor, in
Okay.
your free time?
I have a lot of that.
Successfully in this book, in this whole series, I have received a text message from Connor giving me a forewarning that there would be spiders in the next section. But I did not receive my spider warning, and I was super, super stressed out because I was like, I don't know how much they're going to be around. Like, usually it's like a lot of spiders, like just fair warning, or whatever. Like, they're just going to mention it, no worries. And so they just show up, and then I'm all like, I don't know what's about to happen, and these spiders are about to take over the whole world. So I'm just putting it out there that I was scared about the spiders. They weren't that much this episode, but
I think going forward you should expect slight spider at least.
slight
there's
spider.
only-
Yeah.
There's only 2 sections left.
Yeah, but isn't Erewhon trying to make them like literal entire like foot soldiers or whatever? That is my literal worst fear.
I'll try to warn you. I don't remember when they're coming, but I did read this section before you, and I should have texted you. So I'll try to do that next week.
It's okay. It's like, what kind of friend are you or whatever. You're not spoiling the book for me. Like, what the
Yikes.
heck?
Rude.
Next week, it's just between pages and.
And spiders.
Between pages and spiders.
No. But this is the part where Maeve starts talking about the Karen Quee and how she's been like hanging out with them since she left Dorian and Aelin, and then literally just like offers a bunch of them to become Vogue princesses, which I can only imagine the horrors that we will see that play out with. So not looking forward to it. Chapter 71. Oh, this is when Maeve finds Dorian. Like, she knew the whole time that he was there as a little mouse in the room. She literally, like, steps on his tail and stuff, which is, like, super rude. But immediately she starts to try to, like, attack his mind. Dorian has a sentence, and I, like, highlighted it, and I had two different thoughts about it. One when I was reading it the first time, and another whenever I left my note in here. But it said that she has this power to break into minds, to rip apart the psyche, a different sort of enemy, one that would require another route, a reckless fool's route, a courtier's route. And I had written that like, I'm a little nervous as to what that means, because then it immediately goes into him like leaning against the wall and smirking and doing his old Dorian thing and stuff, which I mean I'm here for, but not against Maeve. But like now looking back at it and knowing how this ends and how like immediately he like shifted his whole brain or whatever for her to like mess with and not his actual brain, and however he came up with that so fast is amazing. Dorian is just so cool. I just love him.
He's the best.
He's the best. Yeah.
He's the best.
Real quick, while we're talking about that, I'll reference this. It's another Sword of Truth thing from that series by Terry Goodkind. There is something in that book as well where main character gets kidnapped by this specific type of enemy. It's like a group of women. They basically like torture the person under them in like a really specific way, but it is really drawn out and long. Typically that person is with them basically like until they die or they kill them and torture or whatever.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think I had talked to you about this a little bit.
Yeah.
But something that he does before it starts, he doesn't know that he does it, but in his head, he's like, I'm going to like lock a part of myself away so that, you know, whatever I need to do to survive this, the real part of me is like locked away. And what they call it in the book, they call it that he partitioned his mind. And
Yeah.
It's like a wizard thing, which is like a whole nother
Interesting.
story point. But it's kind of like what he does. So it's like that like magical connection doesn't take a hold of him as it would have like somebody else, because he partitioned his mind. So he was able to like reclaim that to like come back out of it. So that's the kind of like what that reminds me of, but it's very cool. Anyway.
That's cool.
That is like a cool way of thinking about it with his brain. I was imagining like
Yeah.
two
Pretty sweet.
little brains.
I knew you
Like
were
that.
going to say that.
Like the
Need
fake
another
one.
brain.
The fake one for Manon and then the real, or Manon. The fake one for Maeve and then the real one for himself.
Just like a little stress ball brain for Maeve to squish.
Yeah. She's like, this idiot. It's got this little tiny brain.
Putty in my head.
But it was really cool. All of that. Just Dorian in general is really cool. But we talked about this last episode, I think, about like how did the matrons know where the Crocken people were and like that whole little camp and whatever. So I just put this in here because this is an answer to one of our questions, which was that the stupid spider was the one who told all the people. Is it Cyrene? Is that how we pronounce her name?
Yeah.
And that she like told some other spider who told some other spider who told Maeve that that's where they were. Then somehow that got to the matrons. I don't know. And that's how the matrons showed up. And spiders are the worst. That's what I'm here to say.
Game of spider telephone.
Classic.
Classic. I hate it when they do that.
Could say they carried it down the web.
They wrote it on there.
Yeah, they probably just put it in the World Wide Web for like anyone to read.
I picture they just leave notes in trees, Charlotte's Web style. Like, some pig. And Maeve's like,
Crocken this way.
yeah.
Arrow.
That's headcanon. My only note from this chapter was this whole conversation between Dorian and Maeve. I was like, ugh, I was just like actively cringing, and I was like mad, but also not, because I know Dorian has a plan. I just hated reading this part where he's offering a marriage alliance to Maeve directly after turning down Manon's offer for the same thing. which like probably gave him the idea for what he said to Maeve. But like, I just hated that because his whole scene with Manon was so emotional. And then he goes right into this calculated manipulation with Maeve where he just offers the same thing. And I was like, ugh, I hated that.
Yeah, my note here was just all caps. Excuse me, what? What is happening here? This is unacceptable. I feel like after reading this chapter chunk, I would trust Dorian with anything. Like, give it to him, he's going to do it. But honestly, a little bit before this, there wasn't full-on Dorian trust. You know, he's gone through a lot, and he hasn't really been the leader of anything. He's, you know, been on the boat while Aelin and co makes the plans, and he's been with Manon while Manon's the queen and doing the things. And he's been, like, a supportive role. And so this is, like, his first solo gig. And so there was parts of me during all of this that I was just like, oh, gosh, I really hope he has a plan. And it's actually going to work because I like had no idea if I should like fully trust that he would like make it happen. And obviously like bro made it happen and more. And he's awesome and amazing. He did. But, but I was really nervous for all of this. Ugh, I was freaking out. Oh my gosh. I feel like there was a lot in this chapter chunk that we're in where I felt like Sarah was trying to make me like bad characters. I think it happened where like this is a line specifically so that you think Adian's not so bad, and here's one so that Darrow's not the worst, and then we get this back to back for both Maeve and Erewhon, where for Maeve's it was like, well, I think it's Dorian talking as Vernon to Erewhon and says to Erewhon, will you truly decimate the world then and all who dwell in it? And then Erewhon says, those who will not kneel. And then in Dorian's POV, he says, Maeve at least wished to preserve it, to rule, but to preserve it. And my note here was like, if this is him justifying marrying Maeve, I'm going to be so freaking mad because I was just like going off because like he's apparently proposed to freaking Maeve of all people. I was going off. And then again in the same conversation, Dorian says, like, the humans, Aelin Galathinius, Dorian Havilyard, all of them, do you truly hate them? Why do you make them suffer so greatly? And Erewhon's golden eyes guttered, they would keep me from my brothers, and I will let nothing stand in the way of my reunion with them. And I'm like, I mean, I guess at least he has motivation for not just being a total jerk. He loves his brothers. Sure. But like, is this supposed to be like a little bit of like, he's not all bad. He loves his brothers. Like, I don't know. Wasn't here for it. This whole conversation.
Even, like later on too, I don't know if anyone had a note of it, but whenever Maeve goes to him to like seduce him or whatever, and he turns her down because he's like, no, you're my brother's wife. Dorian even thought like, oh, okay, didn't expect that from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, a code of honor now.
Yeah,
okay.
like a weird moral, but okay, sure.
Yeah, of all the things you've done.
That's the line. There it is.
Sleeping with my brother's wife who hasn't been with for a millennia. Sweet, sweet.
Yep.
But still willing to be like, but you can have someone else. I'll send them to your room. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
You can totally cheat on my brother, but not with me.
That is exactly what happened.
I'll stick this rock in this other girl's arm and just have my way with her.
But for real, that is what happened.
R.I.P.
For real. Okay, chapter 72, it switches to Aelin and co and that whole little group. It starts with Nezrin and Borte as they're like scouting the Farian Gap, and it just says, you know, as it was empty, as if the enemy had vanished. And this is just me beginning a spiral during this chapter section of just like getting so frustrated with the timeline of things and just like, I don't know, like not knowing information and just wanting to continue to read, but I have to stop because we have to record the podcast. And sorry, I just want to finish the dang book. I'd be so done with it already if it wasn't for you guys. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
2 more weeks.
I know. But it was just like not knowing where the witches and the wyvern are is just like super stressing me out. Like, did they decide to be good guys? Are they bad guys? Are they going to help Orinth? Are they on their way to help Morath? I just need to know. This is the beginning of today of me being frustrated about this stuff. So buckle in, folks.
Just the start.
For today.
Right. My note from this chapter section was from their little pony riding mountain guide man. I believe his name was Kai. Said that the gods don't come to these lands. And I was like, why though? What's the reason for that? Because after this, we get a lot of people saying, like, oh, they didn't feel their gods nudge like they usually did. Maybe the gods thought they were good enough on their own or had given up on them. But I was like, well, he just said they straight up don't come here. So is that like an actual thing that the gods do not come to these lands? Or is it just coincidence that everyone's making these decisions? Like Elite at one point, I think Lorcan was watching her and he was saying, like, you know, the god that used to guide her with wisdom had no need to advise her because she was good enough on her own and all this other stuff. And I don't know, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I also highlighted apart from this little conversation where Irene had said, it's as if the land itself does not sing. And it's like something, I just feel like something's going on with these lands that we're supposed to figure out, but have
But
no
so
answers
close to the end.
I know. Maybe this is like setting up her next series about the gods or whatever.
Perhaps.
I don't know. Did you Google something?
Yeah, I thought that there was, I don't know. I thought that there was something maybe early in the series about how it's specifically like the Fairy and Gap is. But now I think I'm mixing series. Now I'm thinking of the Bog of Urid in Akatar. So I think I'm confusing myself.
Oh, yeah, the Bog of Urid.
Classic.
Kyle.
Classic mix-up.
Because in Akatar, there's a space called the middle. That's literally what it's called on the map. And I think it's like...
Kyle! He's never read Akatar, so this is new information to him.
It's like, what are we going to call it? I don't know. Middle.
it's in the middle.
Yeah. Everybody calls it that.
Sure.
They do.
Just put it on the map.
That's where the Bog of Urid is, and it's got this whole vibe where like, but there's not really God. I don't know. Never mind. I'm talking myself in circles.
Just add it to your little spreadsheet about the gods, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll find an answer to it one day.
Throw it in there.
Yeah.
It may be. Maybe it's the same thing. At the very start of this series, they said the world was in layers, so maybe that's how she writes her stories, is just slight variations of each world.
The gap, the middle.
The gap, the middle, everything that sounds like it's a mid-tier clothing store.
Old Navy.
Hot Topic.
I just feel like if you're going to call a place the middle, you have to know it's the middle. If you're coming from one direction and you're like, we're calling this the middle, and then you keep going and you're like, oh, there's a lot more. That wasn't actually quite the middle. Or did they find everything and then decide, now that's the middle, now that we know it's the middle?
That's the
If we ever decide to do an Akatar podcast, we will have this discussion. Today, we are in Throne of Glass, specifically chapter 72.
So I had to call this out because we had kind of talked a little bit about it, I think in the last episode or the last couple episodes. But it's when Aelin's writing, it says, she winked, patting Goldrin's ruby pommel. The stone seemed to flare in response. And she says, I know a kindred spirit when I see one. And I thought it was really interesting that she patted the pommel and kind of said this. Because I know we'd kind of talked about, is it she putting some of her power in there or something? I also think it was funny because it's she wasn't the one that discovered the sword. Rowan did. So I thought that was kind of a funny comment for her. But she thought it was interesting. I don't know if she sends it into the sword, if it's if it's a way to just help her release some of her magic. And that's just a vessel to do that. And maybe it stays in the sword somehow. I don't know.
I don't know
had to
either.
point it out, though.
But I had highlighted this and another note later where it talks about the Goldrin's ruby or hilt or whatever was shining as bright as the sun. But I didn't include it because I feel like I'm the only one talking about it and you guys are just sure, Lauren, And then I'm like, nothing's happened from it, so it's probably nothing. So,
Have they ever said if it was a magic sword of any kind? Or is it just a sword?
I don't know, but it's from ancient times and the little Vogue magic ring was in its hilt. Yeah. So I feel like it has to have some sort of, if
Maybe
Adian's shield that literally looks like nothing can actually have some sort of power. Who's to say that's not the shield's name.
Yeah, because we've never run into anything, I don't think, about magic being stored in stones aside from the word keys.
The witch mirrors.
Well, mirrors aren't stone. The glass, actually, so...
But there was a mirror disguised as a gem.
That's true.
Yeah, Kyle.
Disguised.
Did you read the book?
But I was going to say, if it is true, I wonder if, Rowan has a little ruby on his ring. She could give him a little dab in there.
Just a little dab. Exactly, Connor. She just goes up to him and dabs, walks away.
Rowan would just be like, hell yeah.
John and the eyebrows. It's funny.
Lauren, just so you know, I did have that other sentence about Goldrin highlighted, but I was like, oh, I bet Lauren's going to talk about this, so I didn't put it in here.
I know,
actually
but like,
saw it and thought the same.
but even when I do talk about it, you all just go like, which is sometimes.
I'm sorry, we politely listen, is what you're saying?
No, I think that's sometimes. I think that's. I'm just saying random things because I've said a lot of random things in this podcast, and none of them are true. But also, I sometimes think that's John and Con's like, she's onto something, but we can't comment, kind of a thing. So I don't really know. And look, they're doing it right now. They both just shook their heads. They have a slight smile to their face.
Also, another response to when we literally don't know anything.
No,
That's
that could
awesome.
never be it. You
Just
guys
what
are so
people
smart.
do.
And you guys,
That's like a normal listening face, one would say.
I refuse to believe that you guys don't know anything.
Smile and nod, boys. Smile and nod.
Okay. This whole conversation with Kale and Gabriel was actually really sweet. I think it was a really good moment for Kale to like process with his dad, and a nice moment for Gabriel to process his stuff with Aelin. But the only part of it I actually highlighted was the very, very beginning where Kale says, I'm sure you already know this, but Aelin is as stubborn and as hot-headed as they come. And my comment was, yes, I think we all know this one by now, Kale, but continue. We are aware.
I had a different take from this conversation. I just wrote, I'm much more comfortable now saying that Gabriel's going to die. Because look, if you, in any form of media, have like a side character who hasn't really done much yet, maybe had been in the background helpful, and all of a sudden they're like, I can't wait to see my family after this war. You're like, oh, well, you're dead. Why would you say that?
The way you just leaned into the camera, though.
That's like the one thing that a side character cannot say and then get away with much longer, because it's them. They're opening up. They're giving backstory, trying to reel you into that emotional connection that you don't really have yet for the express purpose of killing them and making it emotional.
It's like that random soldier's POV that we got. You know, he was like the first one to go, like at the battle the next day or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they find like something he was carrying and they're like, no.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like we had that moment too with the witches later when they're like in the room right before the fight and stuff. I highlighted a bunch of that for later, but
they basically turn around and be like, everybody tell me something you love about being alive. Let's go to war.
wow. You would be a great army general, Kyle. I think you missed your calling.
Oh, man.
Okay. Chapter 73. This is like confirmation that Maeve did bring the spiders through and they actually successfully turned into Valk princesses. I know that the Valk princesses, they were like struggling to connect with humans or whatever, so I'm not really sure how that's going to play out, or like what's that going to be? Like, are they also going to have this weird shadowy magic stuff even though they're a spider? I guess that's a prince. We don't know what a princess can do. We just saw it in Duva. I guess it had like blasts of power and stuff.
Princesses
I don't know.
can do anything a princess can, first of all. So get that through your head.
I am so sorry. How dare I? Anyways, I'm not looking forward to anything spiders. They are the worst. In case there's one message from this podcast that anyone should take from all 30-something episodes, it's that Lauren does not like spiders. Thank you. I also highlighted every single time Dorian was shifting because he changed to so many things, and it didn't always like say, and now he is a mouse. Instead it would be like, and this body, his whiskers could do this and that and whatever. And I felt like I was on like a mini mystery trying to figure out what he was going to be. And it did it later with Lysandra, where we get this whole POV of her being like as another thing. And it's not until we come back to them chapters later that you figure out she was like a sea dragon or whatever. So it's just like this whole like little mystery of who's shifting what and where and all the things. And so for context for this next conversation, Dorian is a fly.
As buzz.
Does a fly buzz?
A fly buzzes.
Why wouldn't it?
Okay, sorry.
Don't
Flies can do whatever they want, first of all.
Don't you? Oh, don't you? What? Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I guess a shapeshifter as a fly could do whatever it wants, say whatever it wants. So I'm so sorry. I'll back off now.
To Connor's credit, she did point this out to me, but I have another Dr. Seuss poem, number 2.
Ew.
At this specific point, he's like sensing the power of the key,
Right.
and his magic is telling him to like leave, but he can't. And it says, but he would not, could not without the key.
And now for a dramatic reading.
He would not, could not without a key to save his world, his destiny. He could not, would not turn away, not with the price the world would pay. He could not, would not accept defeat, so on he crept with silent feet. For friends, for hope, he could not stray, the price of freedom he'd gladly pay. Within the halls Maeve did stand, a dark evil queen with twisted plans. She wooed Erewhon with cunning art to bind the keys and tear worlds apart. Dorian watched with sharp disguise, a flicker of fire in his eyes. But Maeve turned, a smirk, a snare. Did you think you'd hide from me just there? The Vogue Queen purred her deadly dream of spiders' keys, a silent scheme. She offered deals a dark duet. Give me the keys, we'll end this threat. But he could not, would not take her hand, not with her path, her evil plan. He could not, would not let her reign, not with her lies, not with her gain. The time was near, their plan was set, yet Dorian found himself in her net. Her shadows swirled, her whispers lied, yet he stood firm and calm inside. She reached to claim his soul, his will, but found instead her powers stilled. For he could not, would not let her bind, his trap long set, already primed. He could not, would not leave her free, not with her hunger for tyranny. So with a thought he sealed her fate, her portals lost, her wrath too late. A king of cunning, frost and flame, he left Maeve broken, lost to pain. For all his friends, for all who'd plea, he could, he would leave with that key.
Oh my god, that is amazing. I'm so impressed.
That's incredible.
Can you guys believe Dr. Seuss came on our podcast?
It's crazy.
Wow.
I have chills.
Literal chills.
I love that. Thanks, Juan.
Yeah, it was a good one.
You need to rewrite all 8 books like that for children. You could probably leave out some parts
course.
for children. A little more fade to black, maybe.
This next part's for mommy and daddy.
It has it in the book. Please hand this part to mommy and daddy. So much trust in the children.
Oh, but you could definitely make one where the end of it is, and Lorcan did.
You could.
Did what?
Exactly.
No, like somebody tell me. I need to know what he did.
We'll get there.
I think the point is the imagination.
No, we won't, Connor. No, we won't.
We'll never find out.
Well, you know who did get there? A lead. So there you go.
Ew.
But do you know that, Kyle? Because you didn't know.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that Aelin catches it in her little blushing gaze is what she
True.
says.
The blushing what?
True.
Gonna make him say it again.
Okay. Okay, so I'm back on God's Watch, you guys. It's been a while.
Wow.
In
It
the
has?
same chapter. It has.
Yeah, like this whole book. There's been like no gods.
But this whole part is called Gods and Gates, so I'm hopeful that we'll get some answers.
Good point.
Oh, it's like a hint.
Also,
my
it's the last
spreadsheet.
book of the series, so hopefully we'd get some answers.
Hopefully. A girl can dream. So this instance of God's Watch is when Dorian's about to enter the chamber. He gets an italics voice that is read in the audiobook to sound more female, and it says, "Turn back." The warning was a whisper through his mind, "Turn back." And at first I was like, wait, what goddess is this? Because they don't typically speak to Dorian. I don't think we've had any instances where a god or goddess has like directly spoken to him in this way like they do for other characters when it's in italics like that. But because they don't typically do that in his POV, now I'm wondering if it was Maeve, because right after this part is where Maeve like finds him And she's like, you idiot. Of course I knew what you were doing. So I don't know if...
Interesting.
What about Coltane?
What about Sorsha?
That's
Maybe
true.
not.
Caltane was like, don't go down there. That's a good point.
Yeah, so it was a male narrator, but he just made his voice inflection sound more female, is what you're saying? Or it was an actual
No, it's a female narrator.
Okay.
It's a female narrator, but she does kind of different...
She has her guy voice.
yeah.
Right then, I'm Dorian.
How does that feel, baby?
And then Lorcan did. I'll tell you what.
Turn back. Turn back. Turn back now.
Anyway, there is kind of a specific voice that she uses whenever one of, I don't know, who Aneth is like speaking to a lead, like whenever there's these little italic moments, it was voiced the same way. So I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if we really get an answer to this. But as I was typing the note in here and looking back on my note thinking like, was this a goddess? But it was weird to me that it's never really been that before. So now I'm wondering if it was Maeve because she came down and was like,
that was probably a good call.
you're stupid.
Well,
Yeah.
and I could see it being Maeve too because his defenses would have been down. And so she could get into his mind
yeah?
maybe easier because he was all freaking out about the collars.
Yeah.
True.
Be good reason for her
Yeah.
to be, like, right outside as well.
That's true.
Yeah, that she like made it all the way down there.
I mean, she could portal there, but yeah.
She walked the whole way. She wanted to. She can't skip leg day. Think of all the stairs.
I'm thinking of them. Right now.
Thanks, Kyle.
1, 2, 3. Anyway.
Oh my god.
Okay. My second, like, sort of God's Watch, I guess, is it was describing in Dorian's POV that the iron door was dented and scratched with age. 9 locks lay along its edge, each more complicated than the last. Ancient, strange locks. So I don't, again, this is just me speculating because I don't really know. But in the beginning of the series, they were saying that there were 9 gods in Aurelia. But then whenever they talk about these figures like that Elena saw or even in Aelin's little hallucination or something later on, there were 12. So I guess my question for the group, my question for Sarah J Maas is, are there 12 of these like fake gods who got trapped, but there were 9 original gods before that happened?
So you're
And
saying
but
there's
then
now
why
21 gods? Like
21?
additional or just it went from
no
9 to
I
12?
think
No, three more on top of the
Okay.
original 9 is what she's saying.
yeah I don't know
Right.
I don't know maybe
Can I go a different route?
yeah
If they each had their own lock, then like what the hell? Because
Yeah.
they're making Aelin forge a new one.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yep. I don't know if this is the same kind of lock. If
It's
there had
probably
to be
not.
9 of them
You
just
know,
to keep
I'm-
him in this.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm being
Each one was
facetious
more
a little bit.
complicated than the last. So it either had to start as a very simple, like, toilet stall lock and get more complicated, or eventually it's like a Rubik's Cube, whatever lock at the bottom. Like, there's not that many locks. So to get more complicated each time with 9 locks is a lot by the last one.
Those little kids' boards with all the like different ways to open the door, and you have to play with all the little locks. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
He didn't find a door. He just found one of those and he's like, what the hell is this?
But this made me think of, like, with the strange locks or whatever, was the one that Aelin had on her head when she had the iron mask.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
were like, this lock that we have never seen before and don't know, and magic doesn't work. And that's what
Yeah.
my mind went to. But
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if these locks even have anything to do with the gods. It's just that it's not like a number that comes up a whole lot in this series other than when they're talking about how many gods there are. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's my sort of God's Watch, I guess. And then just reading Dorian's POV here as he starts getting sucked into the power of the collars was so scary. I was like getting really freaked out and nervous for him. I knew he was going to be fine. I was getting really nervous.
I did not know he was going to be fine. And I was like, he's going to pass out as a fly or something, or as a gnat. I think he is at that point when he goes into the door. And I guess he's just done. Yes, he's just going to be there. Like,
What a way
Book
to
over.
go.
yeah. Whenever Maeve actually like gets him out of there or whatever, and she doesn't squish him, like they have this whole little moment where like she could have, and then she says, what you felt in there, that's why I left their world. She gazed ahead, a shadow darkening her face. Every day, that's what I felt. And I highlighted this and my note was, SJM is not, all capitals, trying to make me have sympathy for Maeve. No, I refuse. She will not be Dorian's wife. Like, it's not going to happen. Unacceptable. But this is what that felt like. Just being like, it's going to be fine. Like, she's going to be our friend and whatever. Just, ugh. I'm glad that didn't work out. I'm glad that's how it was. But, like, obviously reading, I had no idea. Ugh.
It does, like, lend credence to them saying, like, oh, not all Volg are that evil or whatever. Because obviously if she didn't like that feeling, like these guys do, then there's probably other Volg in that world that are like, this sucks, but can't do anything about it. But that is probably necessary for the Volg who do enjoy and live off suffering to continue living, is to have a good population that hates what's happening that they can live off of.
I mean, yeah.
Point.
Like the Bergens.
Just like the Bergens.
I guess that's not really that similar.
Once a year, they got to eat a troll.
Yeah.
We got confirmation here from Maeve that the owl that's always with her is female. She says, I usually keep another Fae female with me, one who has powers that work against the Volk, different from those Aelin Galathinius possesses, so we're assuming healer. She swore the blood oath to me long ago and has rarely left my side since, but I did not dare bring her to Morath. And then she goes into like her reasoning for that. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. And my comment on this, I highlighted it as well, and it was just, but who? Owl emoji. But for real, who is it? Guess we'll have to keep reading the book. They continue to have this conversation where Maeve, I feel like, gives a lot of personal insight on things and even talks about just like how she's completely defenseless against Erewhon and like just a bunch of stuff that through this, I really wish that Dorian was holding Damaris or like trying to figure out like the truth. He even said, I don't even have it. I'm just taking her at her word, or like mention that he does specifically not have Damaris with him. I just feel like he could have had so much more insight on Maeve's intentions here. And like, I am defenseless against him. Like he could have known that's a truth or a lie. Like we just would have learned so much more insight on her plans and whatever. But in this conversation as well, Maeve confirms that Erewhon is not in a human, I guess, like a human body. Said, we are not like the human and the Fae, we being the Vogue, where your souls are invisible or unseen. Our souls have a shape to them. We have bodies that we can fashion around them, adorn them like jewelry. So the form you see on Erewhon was always his preferred decoration. Like you picked a blonde person, but like, okay.
So also saying. Too, like, I'm assuming their preferred decoration is also a human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Seems kind of boring.
I did think that was weird too, having been to like multiple worlds.
Right.
Humans are still the go-to.
Your preferred choice, yeah.
I mean, I guess that's true in like most fantasy fiction, sci-fi, whatever. There's a weird amount of humans everywhere, but still.
No, you got to make it work for the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a choice.
But like blonde? Anyways. all I'm saying here is that Aelin was questioning, I never even thought, is there a way to heal them or save them? Is there an actual person they are in, I guess? And so this is like, no, Erewhon is just creepy bad guy, and it's okay if creepy bad guy, I guess, dies. And we're not killing a random bystander.
Yeah. Evil for evil's sake sort of deal.
Great point. Mm-hmm. That brings us to chapter 74, where all my highlights and notes were just me shouting in all caps about how disgusting it was that Maeve shifted into Aelin and then Manon to try and seduce Erewhon.
I thought it was going to work too. Like when he shifted to Aelin, I thought it was going to work because she was like, you're not going to like what you see, to like Dorian or whatever. And I was...
Yeah, and then it got worse.
Yeah, super... Yeah, just disgusting. But it was when Dorian saw on Erewhon's face, it said desire, true desire, that tightened Erewhon's face. And this is like at Manon's image. That is disgusting. Not Manon. She's freaking hot. But like Erewhon.
Yeah, yes.
Mm-hmm. Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, a blonde.
But like, I was surprised by that because I guess like she is the gold. Her eyes are pure gold, and that's like a Vogue trait or something. So maybe that's why. But he also seems to kind of have a type, which is we'll get there too. But like the girl in his room looked exactly like Kaltain, who looks exactly like Aelin. I don't know. So I was almost surprised by that, but I forgot that he wanted Manon because she has these like purebred traits or whatever you want to call it.
I'm surprised, like, I mean, I know obviously because they're two characters we know, but sort of to the note of why human for Erewhon. Was there no Vogue celebrity that she could have turned into that he would have been like, whoa, this girl, she's famous in our world, sort of thing? Like, I would have bought that, but...
The Sabrina Carpenter of the Vogue coming in her lingerie.
Bedcam's playing in the background.
Or like if Erewhon had his own past love before he got trapped here for 1,000 years, turning into her
Yeah.
might have been the move, you know? But
Maybe she
anyway.
was blonde.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think Erewhon has a mate. He's just some creeper
I didn't
out
say
there in the world.
mate. Let's not get crazy. I just said a
Oh
girl
my
he
God.
liked. Yeah.
Use the M word.
Mate?
mate. Oh my God. We were watching something. I don't remember what
Wicked.
it was. Was it Wicked?
I don't know.
Was that what
This
it was?
Something we've recently watched.
I know, but we were watching something and I just leaned over to Kyle and I was like, I think that they're mates. And he was just like, Lauren, they're real people. Or whatever it was. I was like, oh, still, it counts. Anyways, then we get this like confirmation with freaking Erewhon where he wants the Karenqui to come and be soldiers, like foot soldiers in the army. This is my literal worst fear. I've talked about specifically this. Like if the spiders are on the field and they're doing their spider thing and everyone's fighting and there's just a casual like spider just chilling there like ready to do their thing, then I would quit this book. And it sounds like it's happening.
Yeah. This will stop her from seeing the movie.
There'll never be a
Lauren
movie
quits
for
the
this.
podcast on the last episode.
Does that mean it's happening in the last episode, Connor?
Girl, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Girl!
On to chapter 75. I had to just give some props to Evangeline, but this is when they're in the castle and they're kind of talking about the battle the next day. Lysandra pressed a kiss to the top of her red gold hair. No harm shall come to you. And Evangeline says, I'm not afraid for myself, but for my friends. And I just thought, brave Evangeline. I said, Aelin would be so proud, as I'm sure Lysandra is also. But I just thought that was so sweet. It was such a sweet moment.
She's the best.
I was a little bit afraid of Lysandra saying that. The no harm shall come to you. I don't think that Sarah would do this to a child, but I was like, ugh, I don't like you saying that.
Stop, like, predicting.
It's not an official written note, so it doesn't count.
Real,
count.
not written. It's just a verbal.
I also pretty sure your not written note was that Parrington was Erewhon, and you just, like, threw it out there randomly, and it wasn't written down.
Surely I wrote that at some point. Maybe just in my personal diary. Dear diary, Parrington is so Errol.
Anyways, during all of chapter 75, Ansel is there just like counting off the soldiers as they appear. And I think it's Ren or maybe it's even Rolf. One of them gets mad, like, okay, we can also see or whatever. But honestly, I appreciated her saying them because I wanted to know. But the way it was like counting up the amount of soldiers, and I'm just like, oh my God, 50,000. What? And then all of a sudden at the end, the last line is just 100,000 soldiers. That is literally insane.
John, what are you doing?
I was seeing if there was an image of what 100,000 soldiers looks like.
Oh.
Was there?
Not really. Not like a full image.
I don't know. It's so funny. It's just like an easy answer. No.
No, couldn't find one.
Shit out of luck.
Not my limited search.
Oh, man.
It's a lot.
Yeah, got it. I'll remember that.
I was kind of more surprised that, like, I'm sure they're marching in an army formation. And maybe they just know in general how much is in each formation. But, like, I couldn't imagine just standing there and being like, there's another row. There's another row. 50,000, just like watching it all pour over the hills or whatever.
There was like one point for Lysandra's POV when she was like flying that like someone had taught her how to count like an army marching or something.
Yeah.
That's apparent.
Sorry, you
Not just
hesitated.
how to count. Someone taught Lysandra how to count. No, just like how to count like how many soldiers are, I don't know, in little groups or per certain amounts of land or something. So obviously this is like an estimate. There could be more or less than 100,000, but it's just a lot of people. Chapter 76. So This is from Maeve's POV. She's talking about like the witch mirrors and how basically, I mean, it makes me think that she's the one who taught the witches how to do a witch mirror or whatever, because she was just like, you know, who do you think taught the witches such power? Not the Fae. A small laugh. So like, does that mean like it was her? Like that's something she brought with her?
I assume so.
That's what she wants you to think, I guess.
Sure. But she said, it continued with, how do you think I've been able to see so far, hear the voices of my eyes? All the way from Dornell, there are mirrors to spy, to travel, to kill. And even now, Erewhon wields them to his advantage with the iron teeth, talking about like the witch mirrors or whatever. So now this made me want to go reread the whole entire series again, but be on mirror watch, because I feel like anytime they could be like, something, and there's a mirror, we could assume that Maeve may be listening into that conversation, or like it's some sort of tell that like that's something she's hearing or part of, kind of a thing, and that's information she gets. And so I wonder if that's an actual thing through the whole book.
Do you think the mirrors could be anything, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
so.
If they can be disguised, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Do you think that, since we've talked before about other countries' spies getting information so quickly and so accurately,
Right.
that Maeve could also just portal around, shift into different people, and be a spy for every country and give whatever information she wants at any time and have completely accurate and quick information? And she's the controller of information throughout the continents.
Maybe. I mean, that would explain how the matrons knew the stuff about the Crockens we were talking about earlier. Like,
Well, yeah.
how did a spider tell the witches? I don't know. But, like, yeah, maybe Maeve just showed up. It was like,
Yeah.
here's all the info.
He just shows
you
up,
know?
gets
I
the
don't know.
news.
And everyone thinks that she never leaves Doranel, but she's actually just
In
disguising
different
herself.
forms, yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Wow. Okay.
She is
Now
her
I'm
own
scared
network.
of her even more. Kyle and I had talked after she revealed her first portal and was like, ba-bam, here's the spiders, like snap of my fingers kind of a thing. And we had stopped reading at some point before this chapter, and had a conversation about like, why doesn't she just like open up a portal and everyone just show up at Orinth or like in Terrasen? Why are we marching? Like, what is going on? You know, now that she's there, kind of a thing. And so I did appreciate this one sentence just because it kind of answered that for us, where it said like that there are wards around his, being Brandon's, kingdom to prevent me from doing so, like opening a portal. And so Dorian says, so you cannot transport Erewhon's armies there for him? And she says, no, I can only enter on foot. There are too many of them anyway for me to hold a portal for that long. So I was like, okay, I appreciate that explanation. Very convenient for everyone who lives in Terrasen that this happened to happen 100 bajillion years ago, but still.
I don't know if those wards were specifically put up like when Aelin was little, because they talked like way earlier about how Maeve kept trying to visit Aelin when she was little to like...
I thought it said Brandon put these up. Like Brandon knew my
Maybe
true power, and so
oh.
he put up the wards or whatever.
Yeah, maybe it was Brandon. I guess what I'm saying is like that's why she couldn't get through to like visit Aelin. Yeah,
That
she
would
couldn't.
make
Yeah,
sense.
she couldn't just like show up in the castle or whatever and be creepy.
And maybe why the mom went to Terrasen, or like they stayed there, like never left.
oh yeah, I don't know.
Perhaps. I had a note from Maeve saying that not all Vogue are evil. And we kind of touched on this several times now in our notes previously, but it did kind of answer my question I had in an earlier episode where I was like, why are they all doing this? What are they doing? What's with the Vogue all being on board with this? And I was like, okay, so I guess to be fair, it does seem that unless the Vogue themselves are like unwillingly put into the bodies of those they possess, that most are evil. I feel like the non-evil ones would be the big minority that are still in the world left behind, probably. But
Yeah, I called BS on this one. I'm just not buying it.
yeah,
Quick comment there for me.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, but like, what if the book, like hypothetical, what if there was a random character who was like Vogue the whole time?
like Dorian. That's what he's been wondering.
I know, and even Maeve comments on that and says like, because he's like so different from anyone else, and wonder if any Vogue like.
Why are you twirling
came
your hair when
over.
you say that?
he's not like other Vogue.
I could
I was
change
just
him.
fixing it. I wasn't trying to twirl my hair. It's funny. I'm
Well,
just
and
saying.
Dorian keeps asking if he's human or not, which keeps
Yeah.
making me think of the song from the Muppet movie.
Am I evolved?
Man,
Oh, am I a Vogue?
am I a Vogue?
A very manly Vogue.
He just shape shifts into a Muppet and into a man and does both sides of the song.
Any movie is made better by Muppets.
100%. Totally
That's fair.
agree.
He would be Kermit, because it's Dorian. He'd be the prince at the start.
It's not easy being
Does that make Manon Miss Piggy?
I hope so. She'd be a great Manon. Are you kidding me? Especially when she starts out all like high and mighty and stuff like that. Oh man.
Good point.
Good. Anyway,
Can we please spend some time? It doesn't have to be now. It can be in our free time, Kyle. Like casting the entirety of Throne of Glass as Muppets. Please.
sure.
You could make that into a reel. It'd just be like a picture of the Muppet, and you'd put.
Yes.
It'd be like your
We're gonna
Muppet
do
fan
that.
cast for Throne of Glass. Please do that.
Yeah,
And
we're
at
totally
Sarah
gonna do
J
that.
Maas with it. Just in case you need ideas.
At the Muppets. At whoever. All of them.
Copyright the idea.
It's the guy in the office again. It is an idea.
Yeah.
We're so doing that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, while Vogue may not be truly good, you know what is? Book of the month.
Yes, and their December deal for the new members is just too good to miss. If you're looking for your next favorite read, Book of the Month makes it super easy. Every month, they feature the best new releases and hidden gems across all genres, handpicked just for you.
This month, I chose Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney, which was described as a dark thriller about marriage. And after looking up the author, I see her referenced as the Queen of Twists, so I'd be lying if I didn't intend to read it, also as a challenge to find the twist before it twists. And I did appreciate that there were some holiday-themed picks, but I'll always be pulled more towards a good mystery, so I'm glad this was available as well.
Not sure what to pick? Book of the Month always has something for everyone, and if none of the selections speak to you, you can skip a month and keep your credit for later. Stress-free and super flexible.
And here's the best part. This December, new members get a festive holiday-themed sticker sheet with their first box. Sign up right now with the code TINSEL, that's TINSEL, and snag your first book for just $5. Tap the link in our show notes or description box to grab this deal and join Book of the Month today.
And rolling right into 77.
Chapter 77. My first note is that it was a pretty dark-haired girl in Erewhon's room, no older than 20, a near twin to Caltaine, who I'll remind you is also a near twin to Aelin. And my note said, ew. That's all.
Ew. I didn't even think about the lead part of it. I was just, the whole description of her being in his bed and stuff is just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that, it said from Dorian's POV that he now knew why he felt the key's presence throughout the keep, moving about, vanishing, because it had been walking, trailing its master, her enslaver, which at the time is like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because Caltaine was like all over the place and like whatever. But then later in the Farian Gap, when Vernon is there, he talks about how he like never saw this other key, never knew it was in this girl. After Caltaine, he had never seen it again. And I was like, that's weird, because apparently she was just walking around and like Vernon was all up on Caltaine. So
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
I don't know.
He knew that Vernon was all up on Caltaine, and he's like, yeah, you're not getting close to this one, because we know what happened to the last one you got close to.
Yeah, but he only sent Vernon not long ago, because he sent him after Dorian had posed as him asking questions, which is kind of interesting.
But Vernon is human, right? And he doesn't have, he probably wouldn't be able to sense that. But like, I guess if he knew that Caltaine, did he know that Caltaine had the key in her arm?
I thought she had it pretty visible.
I feel like you'd be able
This
to
girl may
see
not.
it. Yeah.
Right. Because they were always noticing her scar. So yeah, I don't know.
Who knows? Nobody.
Sarah.
That's true. I had written that Dorian learns that his healing ability undid some of the Vogue within this trapped girl. So perhaps he too will play a pivotal role in cleansing the Vogue from their world, especially after seeing how, in mere minutes later, the strong and precise amount of power that he has, And if he can take that same sort of raw strength into the healing aspect of it.
Yeah, we talked about that too. We had a conversation about that. What else do you want me to say? I also had a combo about his magic here and how even his healing magic was strong enough to push back the Vogue inside that girl with one brief touch. Yes, we also had that conversation.
That's
it was
what I
just the fact that
expecting to
there
hear.
was more.
Yeah.
I didn't even read it. I was just expecting more than a couple words, but that's okay. Yeah, I really hope that Dorian will be able to help Irene with this like whole healing of everyone process, because I just talked about that last episode with my thoughts and theories and just like why is none of the other healers doing anything or whatever. But also like he didn't even mean to. He was just thinking he was like kind of giving her like a Tylenol through her arm to like not have it hurt or whatever. And then he's like not affected, as where like Irene's over here and she's like sweating and it takes her a really long time and she can only do like so many a day. And he's like barely even tries, and the Volgus push back, or whichever way you want to look at it and stuff. So I don't know. Hopefully he'll be able to just clean sweep, take care of everyone. It'd be very convenient.
That would be nice.
He twid.
But with this girl, I did love the like Dorian's whole inner dialogue conversation just on like what kind of king he wants to be, and like if he was Aelin, she would do this, and if he was Kale, he would do that. Trying to decide whatever he wants to be so he could be worthy of his crown. He is just figuring it out for himself and like all the things he needs to do. And I know John made the joke about like Kale not doing that or whatever. Like this is that moment, I guess. But like it did take others so long to figure this stuff out, and like Dorian obviously has been around just as long, but it does feel like the little bits we get of Dorian, it's just kind of like happening for him, and I appreciate that he's on his own kind of figuring it out.
That's probably how his life growing up was with his father and mother anyway.
John, this was part of our conversation too. Weren't you saying something about how like all of our other characters who've gone on some kind of healing journey, it's been like with someone? Like Aelin was like with Rowan through her whole healing arc, and Kale was with Irene, but Dorian is like kind of doing it all by himself.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, he's just basically been like self-therapy. It's like a wonder that he has like come to this point and like made, not this decision, but he like made it to this point where he was able to be in a place where he could just like figure this out instead of just like completely wallowing for, you know, months like someone else. We know. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting, because if anybody was to like really not be okay, it was probably Dorian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be Dorian.
Yeah.
Good point.
But he's like coming in clutch, like big time here, making big moves, especially with this thing with Maeve, and like that whole chapter or whatever, him leading up to that was just like, definitely for me, it switched gears for me and made him one of my favorite characters of the series on the reread.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
When I feel like even growing up, he was such like a party dude or whatever, but knew that he was the crown prince and knew he'd eventually have to take over for the kingdom. And seemed like he was just sort of putting that off for as long as he could. And then was, suddenly thrust into the worst situation ever, and is very quickly having to take all of the lessons he probably had in his life and figure out very quickly how he's going to do that. And he's doing a great job on his own.
Yeah, but even with that, like he's been the king of Otterland for a really long time now.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is the first time that I feel like he's like, okay, this is who I am, and this is the kind of king and person I'm going to be, and we're moving on from that, you know, and he's like finally not completely figured it out, but definitely figured out a large portion of it for himself.
Which, to be fair, like, he has been the king for a little bit. Not necessarily the acting king, though. Like, he is technically king, but he's not leading the nation right now. He's not making, like, those big,
If the
sweeping
nation
decisions.
exists.
Exactly.
No idea
like, a lot of
what
it is
Otterland
wrong.
looks like.
But still, good for him.
Long live King Dorian.
That one sad little guy. But going with what John was saying, Dorian being one of his favorite characters, I feel like I've always been, from the beginning, no, I like Kale more, You know, like, oh, Dorian's great, but I'm going to choose Kale. Dorian's been a slow burn for me. And girl, I'm on fire now. I'm all about it. I'm burning. Big fan. And I want to go back to the beginning and love him from the beginning, because I was so skeptical of both Dorian and Kale at the beginning, because I wasn't sure which one was going to like survive or last or whatever. And then obviously none of them do for like Aelin or whatever, but like romantically is what I'm talking about, because that's the only part of these books that matter. But now I want to go back to the beginning and love him from the start. And I think I would have a completely different feeling and reaction to the series, just not going in so skeptical of everything.
Yeah.
Because Sarah has burned me in the past. I have trust issues. Thanks, Sarah.
I can confirm on a reread, it is really fun, like knowing where some of the characters end up and just like going back and seeing where their starting point was and kind of watching all the little movements along the way. It's really fun. You should try it.
But there's not many series that like I'll read and at any point feel like I want to reread it. And I've said it so many times in just this episode alone about just like when I go back to reread it and next time I read it, I'm going to be watching for, you know, and so this is one of those moments for me too. So I don't know when I'm ever going to have time to reread it, but maybe one day. But right at the end of this, Maeve comes in and she ends up killing the girl and immediately like attacks Dorian with her power, and it was just like her dark power leapt upon his mind. He didn't have a chance to grab for Damaris before he was snared in her dark web. And usually when I'm reading, I'm like fully snuggled in my bed, blankets all the way up, got my little clicker so I don't even have to take my hands out of the blankets on my Kindle, and I'm just fully snuggle. And then I read this and it was like, nope, throw the blankets off, grab the Kindle, sitting up like something is happening, and I'm like freaking out. And so we jumped to 78 and I'm like, this is over for Dorian. It's like Maeve's here, and so far she's just freaking all powerful. And then freaking Dorian, oh my god. And it said that it was a trap within a trap, one he had formed from the moment he'd seen her. How quick this man reacts. Ugh. And it said it had been a simple trick to shift his mind as if he were shifting his body, to make her see one thing when she glimpsed inside it. And every time she had come close, falling for those little slips in his power, so like all of those times that she was near his mind was on purpose, his magic had studied her own, just as it had studied Cyrene's stolen kernel of shapeshifting. So it had learned Maeve's ability to creep into a mind and seize it.
Crazy.
Oh my God.
Absolutely wild.
Freaking insane. Oh.
And just like a quick note, like this is one of many things that I've found in the past few chapter sections, and I'll probably have more for the rest of the book, that I completely forgot about. Like I'm reading this part next to Connor and I was just like, like what? Like had no idea, didn't remember. Just
I almost started recording him like it was a classic reaction video.
So good.
And I was like, oh wait, you've read this before.
It's so interesting on the reread what you don't remember and like other things you pick up and stuff. Anyway.
Well, and I wonder if part of it is because we took a really long time to read this series the first time through, but once we got to part 2 of Kingdom of Ash, you flew through it. I had to like scramble to stay caught up to John because he finished all of part 2 in like a day or maybe 2 days.
Yeah, let me find, it's in my Game of Nerds article. Let me find it.
Nerd.
I like laid out, I forget what it was, like the last, I don't know how many pages.
I have a video where I was saying that there was like 121 chapters in the book and you had already gotten to like 111. I was like, are we finishing this book right now?
So I said, so this book is just shy of 1,000 pages. When I reached page 375 roughly, I proceeded to read and finish the book in 72 hours.
Whoa.
I just whipped it in like
Yeah.
a day and a half, 2 days.
Yeah. So it was kind of a blur. I feel like I remembered the least from this book, even though it's the conclusion of the series, because we went through it really quickly.
Well, I feel like this book is burned into my brain because we've talked in depth about it for the
I
last 6
know.
months. So it's going to be with me forever.
I'm going to give a dissertation on this book after I'm done.
We're going to end the book and Lauren's going to give her own thesis statement. I have a quick shout out here to
What a callback.
It scared me. I wasn't prepared this time.
I thought Minnie bit you. Under the table
She
or
was
something.
doing that a minute ago. I have a quick spoiler-free shout-out right here to the ACOTAR series. This moment where Maeve realizes what Dorian's doing, and she says, "You," and he cuts her off, and it just says, "a smile from him," and Maeve stopped being able to speak. And I just started cracking up, because this reminded me of the High Lords meeting in A Court of Wings and Ruin. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, would highly recommend. But won't give any further context than that, but if you know what I'm talking about, this felt very similar in the best way, and it made me laugh.
I think this one plays out cooler than the one in Aquawar. This moment
sure.
is
Yeah,
really
maybe a
cool.
little.
Well, the next one I had was like, so Dorian stops Maeve from being able to talk, and they end up having this like mind-to-mind conversation, and there's a lot of italics. And I get to the end of this epic italics conversation, and I just want Kyle to argue that this italics conversation wasn't actually a mind-to-mind speech, but it was all just their facial expressions, and they were just able to tell, like every other mind-to-mind conversation that's happened in this whole entire
I
series.
feel like you're so hurt by it. This one's pretty explicitly in their heads. I stand by.
convenient.
I mean, yeah, like it's written out for you. I stand by most of those conversations being facial expressions. In other parts of the series, though, definitely for like the first 4 books before any mates or anything happened.
I don't think
any italics.
I had those conversations for the first couple. It wasn't for a while. I really don't think it was a lot until Rowan showed up that there was a lot of italics. And guess what? That's mind to mind, whatever, down the mating bond conversation. Huh.
And they were real mates.
Convenient. They were real mates. Oh my God. Let's make a meme of that. That's freaking funny, Connor.
Thank you.
Anyways, I'm right about all of the italics conversations from all the things. I'm just putting that out there
I
now.
have to ask Sarah about that too.
Anyways, this whole entire time, I've been freaking out about Maeve and Dorian and this whole marriage thing. I had even read it and then, like, have to go to work the next day. And it, like, pops up in my brain, like, oh my God, I can't believe that's how this book is going, and, like, all the things. And so when Dorian says he gave Maeve a smile, and there is only one witch who will be my queen. And I was like, yes! Freaking, I just literally like released a whole entire breath, like a huge sigh of relief. Because I was freaking out about that literal concept of the book. And just like imagining him and Maeve showing up to Aelin and being like, no, she's with me now. And like how that was all going to play out. Like my mind took that and went crazy. So I'm just really glad that that's not how it was. So crazy.
Such a good line.
So good. He has a lot of good one-liners in this little section.
He's the best.
He is the best. But I think while all the things we've read so far are really cool, and even the things he's about to do after this are really cool, I think this is my favorite thing that Dorian has done in all of this personally. It had not been hard to have little bits of his magic of coldest ice that wormed through the cracks of Morath's foundations, that ate away at the ancient stone, bit by bit, a web of instability growing within each hall and room he searched, until the entire eastern half of the keep was balanced upon his will alone. Until now, until half of a thought had his magic expanding through those cracks, bearing down upon them, and so Morath began to crumble. That is so cool. And just like, it hadn't even been that hard, like whatever. And he's just like thinking about, not yet. Okay, sure. Now it can crumble. Like, what? That is so cool.
Well, and the fact that it says like everyone who he wanted to escape, their passages were open until they escaped, and he could just will that to happen.
And knew whenever the coast was clear to just like,
He was like, they just happened to
So
find their
cool.
passageways open until they got out, and then they crumbled behind them. It was good. And speaking of his amazing one-liners, too, where he excises the part of Maeve's mind that can control portals and everything, just in her head says, "World Walker, no longer. I suggest you invest in a good pair of shoes." I was like, ooh!
you tell her. You better
That
go
was
shoe
pretty
shopping.
And like
good.
I said, this was just another moment totally forgot about. An epic end to him leaving Morath and getting what he needs. Just
So good.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then just as he's like literally flying away, and it just said
Yeah.
Dorian smiled and brought down Morath's towers crashing
Oh
down.
my gosh.
So cool. He literally took down the entire place by himself. Just, I'm literally in love. Honestly, my journey with Dorian has been the best part of this whole entire series for me. We were like enemies at first, and then we kind of became friends, and we had some separation, and now we're just in love. And it's just great. So good.
Classic enemies to friends to lovers.
Classic.
With a book boyfriend.
Fictionally,
Yep.
yes.
With someone who definitely feels the same totally real feelings for you. On to chapter 79, though. This conversation between Irene and Aelin, finally looking at her leg and talking about it. I felt
Finally.
such classic doctor-patient vibes with her giving her two options, both of which sucked. And the only thing that was missing to me was like a $400 bill just for her looking at it. Because I was like, I've been to doctors a lot lately with how much is going on with like our daughters or myself. And just like having to listen to be like, well, we could do this or this. This one will take forever and cost $1 million. This one will suck really bad and also be expensive. And I was like, all right, cool. It's kind of what I
Great.
get. Aelin was getting from Irene.
I know I haven't done anything today, but you still
Yeah.
owe me money.
Yeah.
Just for talking to you.
No, get out of my office and don't come back.
Yeah, for another 6 to
Yeah.
10 months or whatever. Make an appointment. No, but for real, I'm just finally glad somebody looked at Aelid's leg. And I know in the past we've been like, but they're in war and they might be busy healing people, and I get that. But they didn't have any literal 2-minute downtime in between patients like they did in this exact moment for her to just check out her leg. Of the like 300 something healers that are there. I'm just saying, that's a little rude, everyone. She's been limping for a while. You guys have been together for a while. Somebody should have looked at that before this. It's
They have the
embarrassing.
conversation right after
One
Irene
star.
throws up, too. She's like throwing up from being pregnant. She's like, let me get a look at that foot.
I know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Poor Irene.
Poor Aelid.
okay.
What the heck?
I know. Something I do love for Aelin though is in chapter 79, she's just killing it in her POV, and then it says, not a whisper, not one whisper from that voice who had guided her, not from fear, but perhaps she did not need Aneth, Lady of Wise Things. Perhaps the goddess had known she herself was not needed, not anymore. I just love that for Aelin. I got so excited. My little God's Watch, and I don't have to have a God's Watch anymore.
It's like she graduated from God's Watch school.
Well, this for me is what I was talking about earlier, where the guy was like, oh, the gods don't come to this land.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking like, oh, is it because she's beyond the need for help, or is it because the god, for some reason, doesn't come here?
Was he specifically talking about the Farian Gap, or did he just mean
I don't know. He just said these lands. It was kind of vague.
I thought it was the place behind, because technically it was part of Kale's land still in Aniel. It was like behind the mountains.
Oh.
Not the gap yet. It was just like the weird
Okay.
land behind there before the wastes.
I don't know.
Maybe just nobody lives there, so the gods are like, why waste our time?
nobody here for me to nudge?
Nobody needs a little tap on the shoulder. I loved this moment with Rowan. I feel like he's just so quiet and he's not super involved in like everything going on. He's just always like a strong, sturdy presence. And then he just says these one things here and there, whether it's to Aelin or to everyone else. And it's just like exactly what everyone needs at the exact right moment. And he's just freaking amazing. And I love him. And they're trying to decide what they're going to do with Vernon. Lorcan is pro like torture and breaking the bones and
Yeah.
stuff, and Aelin's over there like literally having a panic attack because she had obviously just gone through a bunch of that stuff, and Rowan basically shuts it all down and says, we can decide here and now what we wish to be as a court. Do we act like our enemies, or do we find an alternative method to break them? And I was just like, I just love this leadership from him, and I love all the times that they talk about like our court being better and like making a new choice and being a better world and not making the mistakes of people before us. And I don't know, I
Yeah.
just love that. I love him. That's all I'm here to say.
I actually really like to, I must not have put it like a note in, it might have just been a highlight, but I loved when they were trying to figure out what to do. Is that this chapter or was it the next one?
I think it's the
I
next
think it
one.
was this
technically.
chapter. Oh, okay.
Like what to actually do with Vernon?
Yeah, well, just when Aelin says like, we try it my way first.
Oh, I think that's this moment.
Which I think was at the end of this chapter, where she, in her POV, that she was like feeling the weight of the mask and the chains and stuff that she was in, like thinking of those things when she decided that they should try to do it without violence first or whatever. And I thought that was kind of a cool character development moment for her too, because like book 1 assassin Selena was just like, yeah, kill them all, who cares? But this was her like thinking differently. But I do love that Rowan's lines here are kind of what sparked that, and I feel like that kind of gave her the courage to step in and be like, yeah, okay, this is what I want, like this is what how I want to try to move forward.
Because he could totally read that energy from her, whether through the mating bond or just like from knowing her, whatever, that she was clearly freaking out. Yeah, this is him saying that to help her out in that way too, and just her own emotions and feelings. But I just love that concept from them as a whole, as a collective, like to just, I don't know, make better choices and do things different and be your own. Just because this is what we've done in the past or what we've been taught doesn't mean it was right. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I just love that concept in life. Make good choices. Yeah. I say that at the end of every one of my classes. Say, have a good day, make good choices. And then the students will be like, that's no fun. Or, okay, if I have to. I get a bunch of answers. But that's how I end every class. Anyways, fun facts. Chapter 80, this is them talking to Vernon and like questioning him and like whatever, which Vernon like very quickly gave in and gave them all the answers. So he was not a very loyal person to anyone. He's a weasel and he's the worst. But he was talking about how Erewhon claimed that he asked too many questions. And so he was better suited to be stationed here at the Ferrying Gap. And I literally laughed out loud because I was like, LOL at Dorian as Vernon, literally ruining Vernon's life and basically sentencing him to death because he gets there and this is where he dies. So that was really ironic. Chapter 81, this is like Ren and Aelin, and they're like seeing all these soldiers come, and they wake up in the morning and there's no hope and they all think they're gonna die. And we just get this sentence from Ren that said, "It would have been an honor to serve this court with you." And I'm just so glad that Ren came around all the way to Team Ass because I just love him. And I've been wanting him to be our friend since like literally when we were in Otterlin and they're working together and stuff. And then he was a jerk and was on Darrow's side for like a hot minute and stuff. And then I wasn't sure where he was. So I don't know. I just love this moment from him, and he's friends with Lysandra and Aelin and all this stuff. And I just like him. I like Ren. I don't know why. He's this random side character. According to Kyle, he's probably going to die. But because all side characters that say any words are probably going to die. And he said some words here. So, but right now, I love him. So,
is Ren on your list, Kyle?
This is the opposite effect because he's saying, like, we're going to die. It would be an honor. It would have been great. So this is the opposite effect. Like, well, clearly you're going to make it because
he's not making plans in a fantasy novel.
Yeah, he's not making plans. So
God.
He's been fine.
All right.
I also love Ren, and this brief little sentence made me love him even more. And I know I didn't catch this on my first read because I didn't know who this was on my first read, but I just had to point out that Ren gave Evangeline Rose's room. Rose was Ren's sister who was killed in the attack on Develin, her magic school. There was like this huge attack and they were all slaughtered. And it sounded like her bedroom has been preserved all these years, but he wanted Evangeline to have it. And she's in Rose's room. And that like made me so emotional. It's really sweet.
That is cute.
Yeah.
Ren is the best.
Yeah, he is the best. So they're talking in Rose/Evangeline's room, and I know this isn't saying much, but this is officially my favorite Aelin quote of the entire series. When he's talking to Evangeline and trying to make her feel better, and she whispers, "I threw up earlier." And then Aelin said in a conspiratorial whisper, "Better than shitting your pants, sweetheart." Just like busted out laughing at this. In this scene, I also feel like Sarah's trying to make me like Aelin again, but I'm like still mad that even after this scene, he and Lysandra both in their own POVs are still refraining from just saying what they're thinking or like doing what they want to do. So that's still making me mad. But what I love from Lysandra's POV is she was done making herself appear nice for men whom she had no interest in being nice to. And I want to be Lysandra when I grow up. That's all.
I had just written that in that sort of conversation with Darrow that she has, King's Flame was mentioned, furthering my belief that it's mass, dangling it to remind us that it exists, so we remember when she uses it later to larger effect. Yeah, Because she doesn't do subtlety, okay? Anything she mentions is going to happen.
Well, and this is one of the things that you mentioned in a previous episode, maybe even the last episode. And you were like, this is the last thing I predicted earlier, but here's another one.
I know. So it's going to happen probably soon. Obviously, everything's soon. We're like 2 sections away from finishing the book, so.
Yeah. It's probably when she gets to Orinth and she's talking to Darrow, and then it's just going to go and a little flower pops out of the ground.
I figured it would
Like,
be
eat that, Darrow.
like mid-battle.
She picks it
or
up,
something.
shoves it in its mouth.
It'd be one of those things mid-battle that would encourage everyone again. Like, oh my gosh, the King's Flame. We're in it to win it, boys. And they go kill people. That's how soldiers talk, right?
General Kyle. I love that. Okay, but in this mention of Kingsflame, we also get a reminder that Darrow was Orlan's lover, and I had completely forgotten about that, so I'm just here to remind everyone.
I know I read that whenever, obviously, I was reading the book, but it didn't like really connect who Orlan was until your note here. And then it made me think, in Darrow's defense, which I know I'm literally on the Darrow hate train, and I still will be at the end of this sentence, but like I think it does make sense maybe why he's extra protective of Terrasen and the throne specifically, and like weirdly taken upon himself to be like a royal douchebag in trying to like save whatever's happening and keep it from some dumb kid who just shows up like Aelin or whatever, in his point of view, just because he was the, I guess, consort to the crown at one point. I guess maybe extra cares about whatever's happening with that. So
That's a good point. I do feel like Sarah's also trying to make me like Darrow here.
Oh, yes.
But I was like, I was kind of falling for it. I was kind of in the moment.
No.
I know, but it was like, I thought, okay, so this is where we definitely interpreted things differently, because Lauren was saying she felt like all his interactions with Evangeline were really creepy. I thought it was sweet. I thought it was sweet that he was like, it, to me, it read like he has spent some time with Evangeline because she's been there, like, you know, she's been staying with Murtaugh and Darrow and whoever. And it just felt like he developed a soft spot for her, like a, I don't know. I was kind of picturing like, I was kind of picturing like my stepdad who never had kids of his own and like had no idea how to talk to children. He thought they were all sticky. Like we weren't allowed in his car when we first met. And now he's like the best grandpa I ever could have envisioned for my daughters. And he's like such a softie with his granddaughters. And that just is kind of what it reminded me of. Even though like everything else about him has kind of sucked up to this point, I do feel like she was trying to show us that and like make us like him. But I just kind of got swept up in it, and I was like, okay, I think I kind of accept this small point of redemption, but I'm still not like Team Darrow. That's probably hypocritical of me, because Adian's sweet moment with Evangeline is not enough for me to like Adian.
I think if maybe this was the only person I felt like in this chapter section that Sarah was trying to serve, you now like them, then maybe I would have fallen for it. Yeah, but instead it was literally like, you kind of like Maeve now, and Erewhon's not so bad, and don't forget about Adian. Oh yeah, Darrow, he's not the worst. And I'm just like, no, all of these people still suck. I don't care what you say at this point. I don't trust you anymore, because I trusted you that they sucked.
Maybe she was trying to convince
so you can't change it on me.
She was trying to convince herself that she liked them as she wrote them. Just becoming more and more scared of killing people off. Like, but maybe they have good sides.
I feel like she's just trying to set up for some of these characters like they're happily ever after, and she wants the like the reader to like appreciate that they got something at the end.
Sure.
Just like and he has his own little house on the side, and we're like, oh, good for him, he survived, or whatever. And instead I'm just like, no.
Kill him.
I don't need him to like necessarily die, but I definitely don't like him, and like he's giving creepy to me with Evangeline and stuff. I don't know. I'm just I'm not here
ordering soup for her. Come on.
Oh my God. Refreshments. Okay, I thought this part was really random, and I don't know why it was in there other than to just like throw me off at the very end of the book. But it was Ren, and he like looks into the distance and he goes, "What is that?" pointing to the horizon. Sharp. Ren's eyes had to be sharper than most humans, since it still was just a smudge on the horizon to Adian. And I'm like, isn't Adian like part Fae, and that's how he survived so long and rose to general so fast, because his senses are like better than everyone else's, and he can even smell the fear and the things on people and stuff. But Ren, just some random human, has better eyesight than Aelin. I just felt like that was really random.
I mean, to be fair, Aelian's acting like Ren can see it. Ren literally said, "What is that?" to a smudge in the sky. And Aelian's like, "Holy crap, you must be able to see well. I can't see what that is." It's like, okay, then you don't know the answer to the same question.
That's a good point.
Aelian's still so deep in his like jealousy and self-loathing that he's like, oh, and he's better at seeing stuff than me.
Yeah. Gosh.
I think this is just, for me, this was like the line for Kyle last time where Kale like murmured so low Rowan couldn't hear or something. Like it just felt like a random, like that doesn't feel like that should make sense. But okay, Sarah, whatever you say. I don't know.
I do feel like that one's on Aelin. Like Kyle Connor said, like a little bit of jealousy maybe. Like he literally asked you what it was. What makes you think he can see it?
Yeah, but then the battle's about to start. They're like, we're about to die or whatever. And it said that Aelin kept his attention fixed on Lysandra and said, "Please, I'm begging you, Lysandra, to go." And she was like, "You're not asking your other allies to run." And he goes, "Because I'm not in love with our other allies." Ugh. Boo. I am the leader of cute romantic moments. I find it in every tiny thing, but I just can't with these two. She just deserves so much better. She is freaking amazing and a half. Yeah. Like she's so cool, and he's the worst. And girl. And then the cherry on top of all of this sandwich is that Lysandra linked her fingers through his in a silent answer about like staying by his side and whatever. And I'm just like, girl, stop. I want to love them because I feel like, relationships are cute, and I loved them at the beginning, and I loved the part where he's like, "I'm gonna marry you one day," even though you found that creepy because you knew about this stuff at the end. But at the time, I was like here for it, and now I just can't.
I appreciate that she's still standing up for herself and not immediately like, "Oh, I'm in love with you too." Like, I appreciate that from her, but I also kind of wish that she was just like, "No, you're crazy." Bye.
Yeah. I feel like for her, like thinking of her whole life, and she's just been mistreated by men for forever. And so she's just, she doesn't know what's really out there, what she deserves and what she could have. And this is the first guy who hasn't just wanted her to sleep with her. And so I feel like
Ren's right there.
Right. I just feel like, she just deserves so much, and she just doesn't know that. And it's just frustrating. So, anyways, I'm coming back to them later because there's another line later. Oof.
I've got some notes.
There's a couple.
Too.
There's a couple. Anyways, I, again, snuggled in bed, enjoying my life, reading click, click, snuggle, all the things. And it says Manon Blackbeak and her 13 landed along them, being the, battlements or whatever, right before Aelin and Lysandra. And I literally started screaming like, they showed up, they're here, oh my god, and I'm freaking out. And then just love the way she talked to Darrow, or Darrow comes out and he's like, "What do you want?" Like, "We're not surrendering," or whatever. And she just looks down at him, and everyone's just kind of laughing at him, and it just cracking me up. And then for her to say, "We came to honor a promise to Aelin Galathinius to fight for what she promised," and Darrow is like, "And what was that?" And Manon smiles and says, "A better world. We heard your call for aid, and we have come to answer it. The Crockens had returned at last." And I don't know if it was the epicness of this moment, or even just Manon's journey that she has come on, and to get to this cool moment, or even maybe just the relief of feeling like literally everyone's telling each other basically goodbye, and then all of these people show up and it's all exciting. But I cried like a baby girl when this all happened, and just Manon being a better world, we've come to answer the call of for aid and stuff, and just I don't know, it just got me so good. And I just cried so much.
I almost cried here because it said Lysandra began weeping in the middle of everything that Manon was saying, and then I almost started crying.
Yeah, so good.
I love it.
But then we get to chapter 82. And it said that 5,000 Crockens trailed behind Manon and the 13. Manon smiled at the old man who had hissed at her, showing all her teeth. "You're welcome." And with a snap of her reins was airborne. Oh, I love this. I love her. So amazing. So good. And then this part, the night before the battle, and they're all like in their little room, and it's all the 13 together on their little bedrolls. And it said, so Manon looked at each of them in the eye. "I would rather fly with you than with 10,000 iron teeth at my side. Tomorrow we will show them why." And her coven grinned, wicked and defiant, and touched 2 fingers to their brow in defiance. Manon returned the gesture, bowing her head as she did. "We are the 13 from now until the darkness claims us." Epic. Love this. So cool. But all I could think about was that Kyle said they're all going to die. And then they're all like, "We're the 13 from now until the darkness claims us." And I'm like, dang it, Kyle. Why you got to ruin it for me? They better not.
It'll be fine. You only know like 3 of them anyway. So
I don't. I know all 13.
name them.
All of their names.
I could because my best friend knows them. Connor?
Let's see if I can do it. Astrid, Sorrel, Vesta, Thea, Kaya, Phaelin, Fallon, Ghislaine, Imogen. Well, Manon's one of them. There's 3 more. Hold on, I got this.
Did you do the twins?
Yeah, that's Phaelin and Fallon. Vesta, Sorrel. I feel like I'm missing them in between. It's not the last 3.
She got
Oh,
this.
Lynn. Lynn is one of them.
She ain't got
Linnea.
Oh, Miranda?
Yes, I do.
Just say 2 random names. We won't know you're wrong.
Yeah. I can't judge you. I don't know. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know the 13. Oh,
I don't want to Google a list of their names because I'm afraid I'd actually see
It'll
what happens
say
to them.
living,
Or like
dead, living.
I know. So I can't like Google it to see which ones you're right. So John, could you
Yeah.
Google the
Dang
list
it,
of the
there's only
names
2
for us?
more.
That's fine. Oh, you're a fan of the
I know
13?
I'm right about the first 11.
Name 3 of their songs.
Well, there was the one at that one battle in Empire Storms. There's the one
My
at...
point is, though, even if you do know their names, great. Do you know their stories? No, because we haven't been told them. We know a little bit of Asterin at most, but other ones are just like little habits they have. They dyed their hair, maybe. They hung out
but
with this
in
group.
your opinion, if I learn their story, they're dead. So the fact that I don't know their story maybe means they're going to live.
No. That's
I
not.
think I know the ones
that's-
that you haven't gotten yet. But
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to get them.
I don't think so.
That's the thing, is like, if you don't know their story, they can easily die. What I'm saying is, it even more makes them to die if they don't have a story, and in the last half of a book, start trying to tell their story. Because that, to me, is like, you're dead, for sure.
Did you say Edda?
No.
Edda.
And then
How could
Briar.
you forget her?
Briar.
Edda and Briar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
Dang
2,
it.
super dead. No,
No one even remembers their name right now. Oh
even
my God.
when they're keeping tabs after the battle, they're going to be like, oh my gosh. Ugh, her face is literally right
No,
there.
there were 2
Ugh.
more.
Her face is literally right there, and her arm is like way over there. I know it.
That's awful.
So rude.
This is one of those things that people who do know this series are like listening to us and like either laughing because this is funny because it doesn't happen, or they're cringing so hard because they know we're right on it and having this conversation and laughing about it.
Yeah, feels like one of
just
those
one of
things
those
that people get
moments.
upset with me for making fun of, like their comfort character dying. Sorry that your comfort character died, but
gosh.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it. I have no control over the situation.
Well, you predicted it, so you called it. So you basically.
Well,
ruined
it
their
came
lives.
out like what, 8 years ago?
When did the
I don't
last
know.
book come out?
6 years ago,
Even better.
I think.
Even better.
Anyway, we can move on
Tap, tap,
from
tap.
the possible soon demise of these witches
Oh my gosh.
to
R.I.P.
someone who wishes to be one. Because something I highlighted was Evangeline decided she no longer wanted to be page to Lord Darrow, but rather a Crocken witch. And I said, that's the easiest choice that I've seen anyone make in this book
Yeah.
series. Like, I don't know. Yeah, of course.
That's cute. I love that line.
She got a little red cloak and everything. Cute stuff.
Oh, to match her hair. Did she look like Vesta? Because Vesta also has red hair. I know things about them.
Yep.
But she doesn't have a red cloak.
Well, no, she's not a
Yeah,
Crocken.
not for
but-
long.
Oh my gosh.
Kyle, that's awful.
Oh my god.
Stop. I'm so afraid that you're correct, and I shouldn't be laughing.
It'll make it eat. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine.
There you go.
Oh my god.
Wow. Okay, end of chapter 82. This was my other point where I really wanted to like this scene with Aelin and Lysandra, but I just don't trust him, and I'm glad that she's also still mad at him. And I loved all of her little one-liners to him in response to he was asking for things from her, the audacity, and she says, "I don't think you're in a position to make requests," but then she still listens to him. I don't know.
Yeah, she still accepts the weird "if we live tomorrow, you can kiss me" thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But for me, it was when she barely showed a hint of entertaining the conversation and it said, Aedian's grin turned predatory. And I was like, nope, creeped out, wrong terms. Yeah, John, stop that face. Oh my God.
Every girl's
Is that-
favorite.
But for real, super creepy. Absolutely no. Especially after all these creepy men who've been all up on her and stuff. And then you've handled it so well up until obviously he was a total jerk. But their whole, him waiting for her and the slow burn for that. And just I don't know, all the things that she needed up until his whole freak out. And so for this is how he turns it around. And all of a sudden he's just a literal predator. Absolutely not. That's just not it.
I feel like it's always been an ick for me too when either person in a relationship makes deals like that, where it's if I do this, could I get a kiss or whatever? Even when I was much younger, there were times specifically I can think of bowling with a bunch of friends, and the guys would be like, if I get a strike, can I get a hug or a kiss or whatever? I was like, dude, just
Ew,
bowl.
who do you hang out with?
We're just here for high schoolers. High schoolers are awful, degenerate people. You work with them. How do you not know this?
The people I hung out with in high school were not like that.
I'm not. Yeah, well, you also were homeschooled, so I hope not.
Not in high school. I went to public high school.
Gosh, I was trying to find in our Discord, there was a week that we were talking about Aelin, and I was joking last week that if there were any Aelin girlies out there, to please, let us know why.
Is there
but
one?
Someone had actually, there was someone who, I'm trying to find it. I think it was maybe Anna. She gave a little reasoning. So in our Discord through Patreon, we have a chat for every episode. There's a spoiler chat and a non-spoilers chat, so people can talk about the episodes as we go. And in episode 26, Anna from our Patreon said, I don't know why, but I have a soft spot for Aelin. I keep thinking about how his whole life was supposed to revolve around serving Aelin and Terrasen, and that was shattered when he was so young. And after Otterlin sacked the place, he then spent how many years outwardly serving the very kingdom who took his down. Once he finally reunites with Aelin, she continually leaves him out of the plans when all he wants is to protect and serve her. 100% he's so wrong for how he treated Lysandra and was such a royal baby about the fake Aelin plan. All that to say, the guy had been through quite a lot and seems like he couldn't quite process the emotions of it all. So there were...
I get that. 100% here for that. I agree with all of those things. However, there are times that just because someone's going through something and dealing with those things does not mean that you need to be in a relationship with that person. And does not mean that that's the time for it. Maybe they are endgame, but he's got a lot of stuff that he needs to figure out and get to and accept and whatever before they're ready for that. And right now, when they're in the middle of this fight and all the things that's happening, the literal war, is not the time.
I think she should take him up on the maybe 30 years from now.
Yeah, if we're both still single when we turn 40.
He did say he'd let her choose when they get married.
True.
So
He did say that.
She could be like, I'm going to marry Ren first and then later.
If I'm up to it.
Just had to throw that in there. We have had lots of people, I feel like, kind of defending Aelin to some extent, but I'm still not really with it.
I'm not either. And guess what? I have another note later where I'm still at Aelin, so we'll get there. Chapter 83, I'm the only one who has a little note from here. This is a really short chapter where really it's just Dorian traveling away from Morath, and he calls Gavin randomly. I guess I just didn't really see the point to call Gavin here, just to be like, hey bro, got the keys, better say goodbye to your lady. Bye. That was like literally it. And I don't know. I just, even him being like, will I be able to call you later? And, you know, we can talk and I can get advice and stuff. And I guess, yeah, he doesn't really have a dad. He doesn't really have anyone to help him be a king. So maybe that's why he's trying to hold on to this relationship with Gavin. But I really don't feel like he needs it. I feel like he's just should just be sure of himself. And
does he ever give a reason for like why he doesn't try to call his dad? Like his dad's spirit? And,
PTSD?
I mean, like he says he never knew him. That'd be a good way to maybe get to know the guy who was trapped in a vault his whole life.
Well, yeah, and like get some of these questions. Like he even talked to Erewhon trying to get questions about like, and you know, what about the king?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, he never truly, you know, served me or whatever. And he's trying to get these little snippets of info, but he could just, you know, ask his dad.
Could just go to the
I
source.
guess I don't know how that works. Like, they have only tried to summon people who have specifically appeared to them, right? Like, Aelin's really only tried to summon Elena.
Gavin and Kaltain never appeared to Dorian before he started summoning, and Kaltain chose to be there. He tried to get Gavin
Well,
again.
yeah, I know, but he was trying to talk to Gavin. I thought Gavin was the one who appeared to Dorian at the castle, like way at the beginning.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He did. But Aelin tried to call Nahimi, and that obviously hadn't happened before.
True.
Yeah, I don't know why then.
I don't either.
If they can just FaceTime anybody who's died and ask them questions, you think that'd be... Well, I was going to say, you'd think that would be a more helpful resource, but I guess that's never really been a helpful resource.
They could also try to FaceTime like some of their alive friends, and if the call goes unanswered, they know they're still alive.
Yep.
Just saying. It's a good way to check. I know we're laughing, but that's actually not a bad idea. Okay, chapter 84. This is just a one sentence from Manon where it said, where the Fairy and Gap host was, Manon didn't know. Not yet. And I was just like, oh, I want to know. And it's killing me that I also don't know where they are. Are they going to the good guys? Are they going to the bad guys? What's the timeline here? Where are we traveling? I've already gone on this rant, but this is just me still being frustrated. I want to read the book. And then we get this moment where they're talking with Bronwyn about the horn that she's using that was used in like the original witch battle and stuff, which was like a really cool moment, honestly. I think it's Glennis that says this is the final stand of the Crockens, and the word themselves were a signal for Bronwyn to lift the horn and like blew it or whatever. And I really don't want this to be like their final stand. Is this them being like, we're here and we know we're gonna die, so let's go for it? Like, is that what this is? Like, that's how I took that.
I feel like a final stand is like either final because you die, or final because it's the last time you need to, and after this it's a peaceful life.
Let's hope for that.
Like they're going to get their land back and break the curse, or...
It's like your final because it's either going to go one way or the other. 50-50 shot.
Yeah, I didn't... I guess I didn't really think
I took this
about
as
it when I
like,
was
well,
reading it.
here we go. Guess it's over. Charge! And they all just take off on their little broomsticks, which is also just funny, especially after going to see Wicked. And I'm like, oh, she's one of the witches on her little broomstick.
She's a witch.
It's me! They're all flying through the air.
I had to do a quick call out to this line from Aelin where he says, let's make this a fight worthy of a song. And I said, get your own cool sayings, Aelin. Manon already said this in Empire of Storms. I think this was right after she had attacked and then escaped her grandmother, and she's flying on Abraxos. And she says, let's make it a final stand worthy of a song. It's like almost the same line. Like,
I mean, this song will probably still be about Manon and the stuff that she does, and not Aelin. I mean, especially knowing that he's like injured and just kind of like on the side right now. So Manon just has 2 epic tracks.
All right, and right into chapter 85. This is when like Manon and them are already like up in the sky. They've gone up to meet the Iron Teeth Legion coming at them, and it says, and when the Iron Teeth were close enough that Manon could see they were Yellow Legs and Blue Bloods, Abraxos banked sharply to one side, and a current launched him right into the heart of them. And I just had a note here that I thought was interesting, that it seemed like the winds were on the Crocken side, because they make it like such a big deal about like the wind calls to them and everything. So I just thought that was kind of cool.
That is cool. I love that.
I like that. Nice. Good call, John. Thumbs up.
Good one.
Good job, John. You did it. It's funny. Okay. But then, yes, they're flying into battle with all the iron teeth, and they got, like so high up or whatever. And it said Manon could see the very back of the host where the horrific, unmistakable bulk of Iskra Yellowlegs' wyvern flew. I was like, Iskra. That's going to be an epic battle, I'm sure, between the two of them. But also, I think they did question, like, is she the new matron? Because Manon literally just killed her grandmother, assumedly. So that's going to be even more hatred and bad blood between them. So
Rough time for the Yellowlegs.
yeah.
Well,
Not good odds for Iskra there, since the matrons are just dropping left and right.
I was so freaking hyped, though, about, Lauren, you were mentioning this earlier, how, like, we get little snippets of Lysandra's POV before we find out what form she's in. But this, like, white sea dragon with the spider silk, I was so hyped. Huh?
River dragon.
River dragon, right. Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of what she...
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct.
So cool, though. I was so excited.
Well, like, just the way she would, like, literally flop her body outside and, like, take whoever she could and then just kind of, like, wiggle her way back into the river. Whatever it was. But also, I mean, like, high above, the Crockens and the Iron Teeth are, like, going at it and stuff. And so it said, like, the Crockens who would thrash into the water and that were still alive, Lysandra would, like, carry them to the shore or whatever. And then and then any of the Iron Teeth she would literally, like, drag to the bottom and pin them under rocks. That's so crazy. And then it said, and slowly the turquoise water of the fluorine clouded blue and black. Ugh, that is gross, but also epic. That she's, like, doing so much, but, like, gross, but like cool.
And yes, in that same kind of moment, it talks about how a blue mist hung in the skies from the bloodshed. Gross.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be breathing all that in.
Yeah.
Ew, yeah.
It's
Wherever
disgusting.
anybody is. And then, of course, I had to call out, I think this may be Aedian's, but his bow twanged. But I will say it makes the most sense to be used in this way and not somebody's, has it been somebody's like voice or something
Ankle.
before?
It was Elite's ankle.
Oh, like
leg.
the pain. That's right. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah.
No, our voices were just twanging.
Twang.
We're just twanging. Our voices don't twang.
The pain and the twang stains
Pain and the twang. Anyway, this I feel like is the appropriate way to use twanged
Yeah.
for the bow. Anyway,
I left my note, just like as a tagline to your little note here. I had marked that a bow had sang, like the bow
Yeah, that's
sang
good.
as the
Yeah.
arrow, and then someone else is the bow, like the bow singing something, and is like throwing off all the arrows, and it's like, wow, the bows are just like really hitting all the tunes today.
very nice.
Thanks, John.
And then as they are catapulting the rocks or whatever, the boulders onto the field, it says, flame erupted, flowing right into the holes that Aedian had ordered drilled into the rock, right into the nest of the explosive powder they'd again taken from the precious reserves of Rolf's fire lances. The boulders blasted apart in balls of flame and stone. And I was just like, this is so amazing. It's another little like small detail that I had completely forgotten about, but it's just so epic.
Yeah, that was a really cool. All the things they did, like even to like take out the witch tower. We didn't talk about that part.
Yeah, like they
like,
did the little traps of whatever it was, oil or whatever it was that they had going. It was pretty sweet.
The oil.
The oil.
Okay. Sure. I'm missing that reference.
Yep.
I'll send you a link.
Yeah, we got to show you that one.
Okay. Chapter 86. Oh, this is when the Volg Prince comes up and is like all excited to fight Aelin or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it starts throwing its attacks at Aelin. And it said, but the pain, the life-draining agony did not occur. And so that first line right there, I highlighted that I thought it was like his eyes, like that he has some sort of gold eyes like Manon.
Oh.
And the others did, like when Roland showed up and he did all his magic, and like the people with the gold eyes weren't as affected as the people who didn't have gold eyes. And that whole scene, that was my initial reaction. And then as you keep reading, I'm pretty sure it's the shield that actually has some sort of protective magic or whatever it is. But I thought it was his eyes. So
I forgot about the eyes thing.
I had written in this same little battle that this is after the Volg Prince stabs Aelin in the armpit. This is the first time a Volg's sensual mouth has been mentioned in a while, and it's weird that it's so close in proximity to licking armpit blood, which has to be in the top 5 worst tasting bloods, I would think.
interested in what the other 4 are there, Kyle?
Armpit, foot, scalp, ear, groin. Those would be the top
Wow.
5.
Oh, okay.
And you know this from experience, or
That's just what I would assume.
But the blood is pumped through your whole body. It's not like it's
Yeah, but if you're
specific
gonna-
armpit
But it's
blood.
mixed. It's mixed with
If you're
everything
gonna
else.
stab someone somewhere, it's mixed in with like the sweat of the armpit,
Oh,
or the
I
wax
see.
of the ear, or like the oil of the hair.
Gross.
yeah,
Or
that
just
is
the hair in general.
Hair in general.
Yeah.
Shall I go into more detail?
Shall he reach the groin area?
There's a lot of hair everywhere.
Wait, what? I'm sorry, what?
I was gonna say. Oh, TMI then.
I was thinking the armpit. I was thinking about the
sure.
armpit.
No, yeah,
Poor,
sure.
poor timing.
Yeah.
She's gonna be red for that one for a while.
I'm gonna cry.
She got sunburnt.
I'm so sorry.
Anyway,
For me, in this moment, I did also mark the sensual lips part, but it was whenever he tasted the weird armpit blood and said it was exquisite.
yeah.
The demon
Yeah.
breathed, shuddering with pleasure. Ugh, that's gross.
I feel like even if I was on his side, I'd be like, dude, stop. You're freaking everyone out. You're bringing down the whole vibe of this battle, dude. Like, you need to...
Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed.
I'll haunt her for weeks.
This episode brought to you by European Wax Center.
Oh, man.
And continuing on Aedian's point of view, kept his feet beneath him as Ro had taught him, as Quinn had taught him, and Cal Locken. Locken? Forget. Locken, thank you.
Poppin' lockin'.
Polka dot.
God.
I thought it was cool that it mentioned him here because of Aelin, obviously, but as all his mentors and the warriors he'd admired above all others had taught him for this moment when he would be called to defend Orinth's very walls. I just thought that was really cool that he was just like calling on and remembering those who like taught him all he knew while he's literally defending the very home that they died to protect. I just thought that was really
Yeah, that was cool.
Okay, this is my final I don't like Aelin moment for the episode. This is Evangeline, and she found out that Aelin got hurt, and she's up in the tower with Darrow, and she said she never had a brother or a father, and she hadn't decided which one she would like Aelin to be. And I just feel like this is another one of those, like, I'm supposed to think about Lysandra and Aelin being together and how he would be like a father figure to Evangeline, and that would be like a really cute moment for them. But I just feel like this is Sarah subconsciously trying to give Aelin to me, and I'm just not here for it. Not in that way. They can be like brother sister vibes energy, but not her father. No, thank you. So chapter 87, this is back to Aelin and her group or whatever. And it said, Aelin begged Oakwald, the little folk, and Brannon for forgiveness as she raised a path through the forest. That made me really sad for the forest. Like, and then she talks about it a lot of times, that they just like literally wrecked the world they live in just so they could walk. I'm like, okay, sure.
She was like torching it.
I know.
Yeah.
She's literally burning it to the ground so they could walk
Yeah.
through. And I get that they're like pressed for time and she's stressed out, like all the things, but I don't know. I also really love Aelin and Rowan's matching tattoos. I would love to see some fan art of that, Connor, if that is something that you can offer me so that I can see their cute little matching
She just wants
tattoos.
to see Rowan's back muscles.
I'm okay with that. And then I just love this from Rowan where they were talking about how they're passing end of year, and she was just saying that she might just want to last it to the ground, and he's like, good, I'll help you. And she's like, don't you think I should conserve my strength? And he said, this fabled warrior prince would tell you to stay the course, but if destroying end of year will help, then he'll be right there with you. And I just love him. He's the best.
I had a candle watch here. It's talking about the salve that Irene made for Elide. The salve is eucalyptus, lavender, rosemary, and something else. New candle, Elide's foot.
Toe jam. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Toe jam.
Just a little bit of a foot smell.
Gross.
That's the something else.
There's a market for it, I'm sure.
Unfortunately, probably.
Okay, one of my favorite lines, again, in this whole series, this is my favorite line from Lorcan, I think, ever. They're like having their little flirty moment, Lorcan and Elide, they're in their tent. Elide's like, I think I'm gonna go take a bath. And he's like, let me help you. And she says, I might slip. And he says, a dangerous time, bath time.
That was pretty good.
Your snort.
It's a good one.
Just can't. It's my favorite. I got two top character lines in this one. Shitting your pants and bath time is dangerous.
Those together is a real bad situation.
I did appreciate how Aelin was like heating all of everyone's bathtubs. Like that's just a random good use of her power to just like chilling in her own tent, but randomly keeping everybody's water warm. That's so nice.
True. It is really nice. Lauren, do you want to talk about the thing that Lorcan did first? Because mine was just a note that where I was laughing about the transition from that to the next
sure.
one. Yeah.
Yes. So like obviously being on the internet, there's spoilers all over the place. And so all I knew, I had no idea the context. All I knew is that Lorcan does something and Lorcan did or whatever it is. And so there was like, I was mentioning, I think just the last episode where Lorcan was like almost dead on the battlefield. And I was like, I know he survives because I know he does something. I don't know what it is. And I'm so annoyed that I still don't know what it is. Like, it's just, so Lorcan did, period. And I'm like, but like what? What did he do?
Everything. He showed her everything. Everything.
Yeah. This is not a fade to black book.
Shown.
Everything.
Sarah.
Everything.
There is a fanfic of what Lorcan did, if you're curious.
Ooh.
It's on AO3 or something. I'll have to find it. I think Jesse sent me a link to it once, and I never read the whole thing because it's really long.
Yeah,
It's everything.
It is.
It's everything. So there is a fan fiction. I'm sure there's a lot, but there's one specific one that's more popular if you're interested in what Lorcan did. This was a line that I had seen before we actually got here in the book too, and that made me laugh.
I said to Kyle that now I don't know if Lorcan survives. Like I knew he would survive up until he does something.
This is his legacy.
Now his book immunity is gone and his future is open-ended.
Sexy plot armors. Guns.
I have heard pertaining to this specific fade to black situation. I have heard, I don't know if it was confirmed in like an interview or something, but I guess at some point Sarah J Maas had said that she wouldn't write an explicit scene about someone losing their virginity, and this would have been that for Elide.
Interesting.
And she doesn't in any of her series. There's always like something happened before, or like with like Kale and Aelin or Selena at the time, like that was a fade to black too. And then you learn later that was like her first time, so this was like one of those things. So I've never been mad about it because I'm like, I get that. I respect that.
Yeah, I guess I get that.
Yeah. Anyway, there's that. What really made me laugh at this point was the transition, because this isn't the end of a chapter where it's so Lorcan did. It's just that we get the little squiggly and then it moves on to something else. And the something else is there was a gate and a coffin. It's like, what a transition to another topic, Sarah.
And I was so confused at what was happening because it's like her dream or whatever.
Yeah.
I read the same thing and like I saw the squiggle, but I guess I thought, oh, we're still sort of saying in the same, like maybe they just moved rooms. So the fact that it was like there was a gate and a coffin, I was like, wow, he's going heavy into the kinks first thing out the gate. Like that's not something you involve in your first time usually. And then it went on. I was like, oh, this is not them.
Is it ever involved?
Why not?
Wow. Okay.
You never heard of gatekeeping? It's a huge kink for some people.
Okay. But then we go to the next morning where Aelin is like very obviously seeing what happened between Alid and Lorcan and such. But Alid quickly turns that conversation into something different between the two of them when they're passing Endovir and just talking about how they both had gone through like really similar situations with being locked up and kind of being slaves and that type of a thing. And they just have this really cute connection and like this really cute moment between them. And they're just best friends. I don't feel like we have a lot of just the women. And there was a couple of those in this one. So I love that.
Yeah.
My last note for this chapter section was Dorian showing up at the end and sort of swooping down, landing, and wordlessly holding out the 3 word stones. Was really cool, but it also just reminded me of Charlie Brown going trick-or-treating and being like, I got a rock. That's all. He comes back with it's the hand with a rock in it. Because he doesn't say anything to them. He's just like,
I don't think he holds them out. I think Aelin can just like feel
just
them.
sense them? Okay, I thought he had them in his hand.
I don't think he holds out the 3 most important things in front of the entire army.
You know what, Kyle? In your book, he does.
Yeah. You know what? In my book, he does.
You do you, man.
Get that rock.
I don't think there would have been any harm in him doing that, though, even if he doesn't. It's literally the most trusted people he knows, and yes, their army, but they're all on his side. Yeah.
If they know that he has all 3 of the keys, what are they going to do about it?
Right. Who could do anything to Dorian about it?
Literally.
Yeah.
Without the keys. But especially having the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my last highlight from this section, was just this last line where it says, but Aelin sensed it then, what Dorian carried, the word keys, all 3 of them. I had chills. I was so hyped and like freaking out. I also didn't want to stop reading here.
Screamed. I did go to chapter 88 just to make sure it was a different POV. And if Sarah intended me to have to wait, then I wasn't going to be upset. It's when Connor makes me have to wait that I get annoyed. So. Sarah does change POVs in chapter 88, so I was like, okay, that's fine. We can stop here.
I was actually getting really nervous about the stopping point. Like, as I was on like chapter 85, and I was like, this seems like it's going to be a really bad place to stop.
Yeah, it's not as bad as you think it was, I feel like.
No, I was getting nervous, but then I finished this, and I was like, this is epic. I'm excited that we're talking here. And that's it.
That's it.
All right. Moving on to our thoughts and theories for the last 2 reading sections of the whole freaking series.
Thanks,
Kyle.
Dr. Seuss.
I really enjoyed Dorian's Morath adventure, TM. I got really into it with the destruction of Morath and how insanely skilled he has become in all kinds of magic and just as a person in general. Definitely, and I believe officially, the strongest character by far. In terms of theories, I really don't have much to say. I really think Lauren and I have pretty much called the end of the book, and now we're just waiting to see how the smaller details fall into place, and also to see what everyone does after this whole war nonsense is over. And then after I was done writing that, I came back later, I was like, oh, I forgot to mention, if one of the first things, and I mean very first things I read about in Dorian's life as it is now, is not reuniting with Kale, I will be very unhappy. If he takes, like, even a moment to discuss with other people, like, oh, how have you been? And it's not Kale, I'm going to be pretty pissed off.
That's funny.
Okay, well, I am super honored that Kyle would say that we called this book together. Like, the fact that I'm guessing some of the theories. But for real, I'm honored because I feel like I have no idea what's going to happen at the end. I don't think I've called any of it, but that's sure cool. I do think there's maybe some like really random offhanded things there that maybe I have, but overall, not a clue. I honestly just hope everyone lives and we just get a really nice happily ever after. That's about all I have hopes for right now. I do feel like the gods have been really quiet in this book, and they're supposed to be like a major part, right? And then, like Con said earlier, like the whole chapter section is called like Gods and Gates? So obviously they're going to show up, but I don't really know in what way. I'm worried that this is not the last we will see of Maeve. Is she going to show up again? Are we supposed to assume her curling up in a ball and feeling all sad and depressed and then the whole place crashing is her dying? Or that she survived and she's just under Erewhon's rule, I guess, now. But if she is supposed to be dead, that was off screen. You don't trust off screen deaths. She, for all I know, could come back. I don't know. It stresses me out. Again, just really annoyed at the timeline of all the things. I just don't like that I can't keep track of where everyone is at what time. Like I'm with all these different groups and they're traveling and then it'll be a couple days or a couple weeks, or we jump to someone and it's a couple weeks later. And so I have no idea if Aelin and co are going to show up to Orinth at like just the right time of the battle, or is it going to be like long over by the time they get there, or these Iron Teeth witches from the Ferrying Gap, are they going to show up at a certain time? Like I just don't know. The travel of it all is really stressing me out. If Erewhon can't portal to Terrasen, what is his timeline to showing up going to be? Is it going to be several months of him walking all the way there? Is it going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, it just, I don't know. I want it all to make sense. Also, what is like the whole actual time of the whole grand scheme of things? Like, how long since she came out of Endovir and we show up to the Glass Castle? Because I know we've talked about it at random times that it's been, but then like all this travel and they're like, it's been weeks and now it's been a month and she's captured for 3 months and like, it's gotta be some time.
Well, I feel like it's been like a year and a half.
Yeah, like just over a year-ish, maybe.
That feels really fast.
Since what?
Since the whole beginning.
The story started.
Basically,
yeah.
Since she was brought to the Glass Castle from Endovir.
Yeah, it's like 15 to 18 months, I think.
That feels really fast. When 3 of those she was locked away, right. And like all this travel and all the stuff in between, that just feels crazy.
I think Kingdom of Ash, because it starts like a couple months after the last book, I feel like Kingdom of Ash is only a couple months. I think.
That's insane.
I thought it was just over a year because like Sam Hewitt happened twice or something, so we were like, oh, it's for sure a year by
and it's
here.
Christmas. Yeah. Or it's like winter, so you'll miss.
Yeah.
I feel like reading those first few books, we think a lot more time has passed than has actually passed.
Yeah, it does feel like
that. You could easily trick yourself into thinking a tandem read took longer than it really did because really you're spending the same time.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point.
Is this like the same timeline?
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah, I would really like a big timeline map where it just has like all the little points of like when things happened. And if I ever do a reread, then I will have my big map out so that I can keep track of things and not be confused because I'm very confused right now. And then I would just like to point out that I wrote all of my thoughts and theories, and then Kyle came back and he texted me, oh, I saw you wrote about Kale and Dorian. I meant to do that too. And so he wrote his Kale and Dorian note. And then I said, no, because I always go second for thoughts and theories and it'll sound like I'm copying you. And I'm just here to say that I wrote this first. And he's going to say it didn't or whatever, but I did write mine first. Thank you, Kyle. And my sentence about Kale and Dorian was, I said all this stuff about maps and whatever random stuff. But I'm also just really annoyed that Sarah has made me wait this long for Dorian and Kale to be reunited. And that if I don't get that soon, I'm going to be really upset. Like, WTF, not cool.
I'm going to set the record straight, though. I did not read your note and then say, oh, yeah, him and Kale. I came back and wrote mine and then was like, oh, oops, you did that too.
Anyways, that brings us to the cry counter. I cried once for when Manon showed up and I was hoping for a better world. So that brings me to 28 cries in this whole series.
Wow.
Anybody else?
Almost one per episode.
Yeah.
Nope.
None from me.
All right.
Well, Thank you for joining us for our 30th episode of Between Pages and Friends. Next week will be our penultimate episode on the entire Throne of Glass series, discussing chapters 88 to 109. Absolutely crazy. And before you go, give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok to stay up to date on our reading schedule and all things BP and F.
In the meantime, check out our website, betweenpagesandfriends.com, for all the cute podcast merch and links to our Patreon, Amazon storefront, YouTube channel, social media, GoodReads, and more. Till next time, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
Bye.
So long.
Thanks for being here.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Good night.
Adieu.
To you.
Adieu.
John, say it.
Thank you.
Thank you.